So far, Anheuser-Busch has lost around $5 billion in market cap because of the controversy with their sponsorship of transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney. And there's a lot of conversation still emerging around it. I think Joe Rogan had a conversation on one of his episodes where he's like, it's no big deal or something like that. And like, it's over. Howard Stern talked about it. Said, I just don't understand why people are so upset. And I find it fascinating that there is this massive backlash, which has persisted into this week over the holiday weekend. And Anheuser-Busch's stock has still been in decline. And there are people coming out being like, no, everything's fine. Everything's okay. And I can only respond to that by over target. And I'll stress this point again. If Anheuser-Busch is forced to issue an apology, it will be a major shift in the culture war, because that will be the point when a major multinational brand is forced to say the conservatives, the libertarians, the freedom faction, they were all right about this. That means they are more scared of you saying, I won't buy your product, than of the far left extremists in their campaign. And there's some new information emerging about the VP, which proves, in my opinion, this is all an ideological push. A viral video came out where the VP, their new VP of marketing, whatever, said that it's a dying brand and we've got to inject some life into it. That's strange. The brand itself, Bud Light, was the highest selling beer of last year. And more importantly, photos have leaked of this VP having herself a frat party. And what was she doing? Blowing up condoms or something, or drinking?
Taking shots out of them.
Well, there you go. So this idea of inclusivity or whatever it is she's talking about clearly isn't a part of her life, clearly doesn't matter to the stronger brand. When Anheuser-Busch is seeing record profits, Bud Light's selling the most out of any beer brand in the world, and then they claim it's dying, so we have to change it, you know they're lying. So we're going to talk about all of that stuff, especially with what's been happening with regional distributors. And then there actually is probably bigger news, but it's political. And we've talked about it quite a bit. There's a whistleblower who's come out and said that he can put him in front of a grand jury, and he will say under oath that Joe Biden committed crimes promoting Burisma, helping his son in his private business dealings in Ukraine. And I think that's particularly important. However, we're not in a political electoral cycle. I think the Anheuser-Busch battle may be one of the most important culture war battles we're seeing right now. And then, of course, NPR, and I think PBS just announced this too, they're quitting Twitter because Elon Musk correctly labeled them state-affiliated and government-funded. Oh, and they're crying about it. It's all true, by the way. They are. Before we get started, my friends, head over to castbrew.com and pre-order your Cast Brew coffee. That's right. Today's episode is brought to you by Cast Brew Coffee, the coffee company that we have launched as part of our new coffee shop, which will be opening hopefully in the next few months. You can pick up your Rise with Roberto Jr. Breakfast Blend or your Appalachian Nights, and these will ship by May 5th. So it's just entering production in the past few weeks, and they will ship by then. Also, don't forget to head over to timcast.com, click Join Us to become a member and support our work. And as a member, you'll get access to uncensored segments from this show Monday through Thursday at 11 p.m. We will have one of those up for you tonight. And if you're a member for at least 6 months, or you sign up at the $25 level, you can actually get access to our Discord server, which allows you to call into the show and ask questions of us and our audience. So don't forget to also smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about all of this and more is Jesse Kelly.
Tim, honored to be here. It's going to be a rambunctious night with all the Bud Light news.
Oh, yeah, particularly interesting stuff. So who are you? What do you do?
I am Jesse Kelly. I am, for one, I'm the menu whisperer. I'm the greatest orderer of food in the world. If you look at a restaurant menu, I just am a genius when it comes to ordering those. But I also have a show, nationally syndicated radio show called The Jesse Kelly Show. I have a TV show called I'm Right. And now I'm a world famous author. I wrote my first book ever that doesn't come out till June, but I'm sure it'll be world famous, called The Anti-Communist Manifesto.
Right on. Well, thanks for joining us.
Of course.
And of course, Luke Rutkowski's over here not paying attention and posting memes or something.
I'm working here, okay? The memes can't post themselves, right? My name's Luke Rutkowski here of We Are Change.org. Today I'm wearing a t-shirt that says defund the ATF and make it a storefront, which you could get on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. And the meetup is on for tomorrow, 3:30 p.m., Austin, Texas. There's going to be some surprise guests. To find more about that, go to lukeunfiltered.com for more details. Thanks for having me.
Jesse, I'm going to have to take you up on this menu claim. It's a bold statement. The best of the best.
Look, God gives us all talent, right? You know, Mozart could play instruments or whatever he did. When I look at a menu, I know the best thing to order. And people think I'm joking when I say that. But when we go out to dinner, which I'm sure we will at some point in time, You won't order what I order because you don't trust me right now. But I will order something superior to yours, and you will look at my food, and as always happens, you will say, I should have got what you got, because you don't trust me, but you will eventually.
This excites me.
You will.
I love you, Jesse. Thanks for coming, bro.
All right, everybody, let's jump into that first story. We got this one from the New York Post. Anheuser-Busch loses more than $5 billion in value amid Dylan Mulvaney Bud Light controversy. This story is from just today. So, simply put, it's getting worse. They say since March 31st, shares of Bud Light's parent company have fallen by nearly 4%, knocking down the company's market capitalization from $132.38 billion to $127.13 billion on Wednesday. Anheuser-Busch stock fizzled more than 1.5% on Wednesday. So let's talk about this. Because just before the show, Ian brought up that Joe Rogan on his show said it wasn't a big deal or something to that effect. Could you elaborate on that, Ian?
Yeah, and I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but it was a clip that was on YouTube from, and I should pull this up immediately.
Was it recent or was it?
Yeah, it's very recent. He had a comedian on by the name of, oh, come on.
But it
YouTube.
usually takes a couple of days for him to release the podcast, though. So that's also something that we should consider here.
But
exactly. It was one with Sam Talent. Talent is the guy. Sam Talent is the guy's name. And really, Sam was talking about.
When did it go up?
It went up, let's see, 6 hours ago on YouTube.
So I imagine that was probably recorded yesterday or Monday.
Something like that, maybe, yeah, probably.
And I'll say, I think they're wrong about this.
They crack a couple Bud Lights. They're like, yeah, I think the drama's over. But you were saying that you think maybe he's insulated being on Spotify. You guys were.
They were drinking the beer?
Yeah, they pulled out a couple Bud Lights and were drinking in
Joe?
solidarity. It kind of like tongue in cheek, but the Sam Talent is like, yo, I love Bud Light's great. It's my favorite beer. You know.
How could Bud Light be someone's favorite beer?
I think he said it was his favorite beer.
But I just mean in
you can
general.
drink 20 of them. You can drink like 6 of them because they're not really they're not really thick.
It's the fluoride and the calcifying of the pineal gland that gets people addicted towards destroying their frequencies, right, Ian?
It's the kind of beer, yes.
Thank you.
But it's the kind of beer you drink if you just want to get drunk and you don't really care about the flavor.
As the joke goes, it's the kind of beer you drink when you don't want to drink beer, but you want to drink a lot of it. I thought that, I didn't write that. I saw that on Reddit or something. I thought it was brilliant. But I heard that Joe Rogan cracked open a beer and they're like, it's no big deal. And it's like, you know what I wonder about this? I wonder if, when Joe was on YouTube, he could more see the direct impact of his comments and what people thought about them. And when you're on Spotify and you're releasing, after the fact, I think the last time I went on his show, it was like 5 days later they released it. And I think it was I went on before the Rittenhouse verdict, and then he aired it after the Rittenhouse verdict. So that really changed a lot of the context. But I think what happens then is if you're not really paying attention, you don't see what people are talking about. You're like, I don't know, I saw some people talking about this Kid Rock did a thing, but I guess no one cares anymore. And now it's several days later, you put up an episode, and once again, Anheuser-Busch stock is going down. People still care about this, and the conversation is persisting. Here's what I think is happening. A domino effect is occurring where there was a major backlash to the sponsorship of Dylan Mulvaney. This started a metaphorical fire for Anheuser-Busch. A bunch of people then jumped on it and started talking about it, which created an opportunity for more commentators to say, okay, let's talk about it. I'll put it this way. I'll be completely blunt. I didn't really care all that much. And then I saw the video I did, and I got 1.5 million views. And that said 2 things to me. One, people really care about this. And I think it's as simple as you've screwed with their beer and now they are pissed off. The other thing I realized is you are going to start to see commentators capitalize on that. And they're going to make as much content about it as possible because people care, which is, for me, let's be honest, a business opportunity, but that's ancillary. More importantly, it's a culture war opportunity. If this is the hill people are willing to die on, let's roll, baby. And now we have news coming out, leaks, photos about the VP and about her frat parties. Information is being brought up about Bud Light sales. It's fair to say this is more than just Bud Light, this thing that happened last week and no one cares anymore. Because Bud Light has ignored their base, their market, and they've basically doubled down on this. They've pissed people off, and they've created a viral opportunity for online commentators, be it for or against it. The fact that Joe Rogan talked about it, whatever it is he said, all that did was throw more fuel into the fire, And it's going to get more people asking what is going on with this and why.
They actually talked about that on the episode. They were like, look at us. We're drinking Bud Light right now, so it's working. Like any news is good news, but it's not. You can actually trash people with a lot of news about them too.
Well, the issue is for Bud Light, if they're already at the top selling beer in the world, they can only go down. So yes, bad press is bad for them. And before this scandal broke out, their stock was spiking up like 10%, and now it's flipped and started going down, where comparable beverage brands are not seeing that same thing.
I have a couple different things to say about it, and I'm of two different minds about it. One, Bud Light and Anheuser-Busch will be fine, and they're going to be fine for a very specific reason. Well, two specific reasons. One, because the right can never maintain a culture war fight at all. I know they had a bad weekend, but I watched the NFL have bad ratings for precisely about 15 minutes when Black Lives Matter was taking a steaming dump all over the flag, and every person on the right, they couldn't wait to run to social media and I'm done forever and I'm done, and NFL's racist and I hate this place and I hate America. And like I said, about 15 minutes later, they were all bragging, oh, did you see that throw from Drew Brees? It was wonderful. The right can never maintain these things because they don't love freedom as much as the communist hates freedom. That's one.
Agreed.
Two, Bud Light, Anheuser-Busch is going to be fine because the truth is, as many organizations has found out, from financial institutions to sports like the NBA to others, you do not need to appeal to a customer base anymore. That is an old way of thinking. You need to appeal to the regime. And right now, we have a new religion in America. We are the U.S. of gay now. That is the regime. I don't care what you think of it, whatever, LGBTQ, whatever. Everything revolves around that now. We have the Secretary of State saying he's writing Saudi Arabia every single day about gay rights. We are in a time of insanity in the United States of America, from the Pentagon to the Secretary of State to entertainment. That's all they care about. So if Anheuser-Busch has proven they're going to be loyal to the new religion of the U.S. of gay, they will eventually be okay. I
disagree. The point is they've lost $5 billion. Their stock is going down. And so long as people have two things, the willpower, which I admit is lacking among people who are anti-establishment to a great degree, but there's something more important here. You see, outside of the willpower, there's monetary incentive. So it may be that many people on the right don't have the willpower and within 15 minutes would be cheering for, whoever's thrown the latest touchdown pass. The issue for Budweiser right now, they're not going to be able to overcome, is that online personalities are getting a major flood of viewership from talking about this. It's not going to go away so long as I can put out a video and get 500,000 views just by saying Budweiser. And that's an opportunity we've not seen before. So I don't care about the money. I care about the fact that people will watch it. And then I can say, don't forget, don't buy Budweiser. And it's not just that. We're not asking people to go out and register 100,000 voters. We're not asking everybody right now to be Scott Pressler. We do wish everybody would be Scott Pressler. But if we can't get that, the least we can get is, oh yeah, next time you go to the store, buy Guinness. I don't even know what, PBR Old Style or something.
Let me tell you why I disagree with that. You're not wrong, but I disagree with it. Yes, we can hurt them, and we should, and I hope we maintain this. But really, what drives so many of these corporations now is the major financial institutions, including the financial institutions of the United States government, all of which now are governed by all this ESG, LGBTQ, all this insane crap. So yeah, let's say Anheuser-Busch, let's say the right finally steps up and sticks with something. And please, Lord, let them stick with something for the first time ever. And let's say they stop buying it and these southern distributors really cancel these orders and people stop buying it and they stick with it and they don't forget about this, which they're gonna. But let's just say for the sake of argument, they do not. You know what Anheuser-Busch will still have? Access to endless capital from Wall Street and Washington, D.C., because they have paid homage to the religion of the nation. They've paid homage to America's religion. Anything. Oh, yes, it sure it means everything. Why do you think the NBA has taken the entire generation, and they've alienated an entire generation of American young people? There's no reason to do that.
They made a bet that conservatives, classical liberals, will do nothing about it. That you're right about. But this is where we're starting to see something actually bigger happen, where people, we've seen the Nike boycotts, right? And the funny thing is, when Colin Kaepernick took a knee or whatever and the Nike sponsors him, all of these videos emerge of people burning their gear and their socks and all that. Within 3 years, every single athlete took a knee. And if you didn't, you were the odd person out. That was a defeat. Something different happens. After a week and over a holiday weekend, when people are supposed to forget about it, Anheuser-Busch thought they could keep their mouths shut and this would go away. And we're looking at now a week of their stock dropping. I'll take it, and I won't shut up about it, because if we can keep the pressure on and keep talking about it, eventually get to the point where it doesn't matter if they have endless capital. If the regional stores and the rural stores say, we're not going to carry your product, it's become popular, and it's hurting our brand to carry it because people are getting offended, are angry that we're not involved in this. You're going to see distributors kicking it back. You're going to see people like John Rich saying he won't carry the product anymore. But John Rich didn't say, you know what? I hereby stand on principle and will ban Anheuser-Busch. You know what he said? He said, honestly, over the past week, people stopped buying it and started to pile up. So we got to figure something out. If they're not going to buy it, I'm not going to order it because I'm losing money. John Rich came out after Kid Rock and after Travis Tritt and was just like, hey, look, nobody's buying it. And if that's what's really happening, and we're seeing videos of people in grocery stores showing the Bud Light is all still there and the Budweiser is all still there and other brands are gone. And now we saw Dan Crenshaw come out and post a video about it earlier this week. More and more people are getting on the meme and the trend of not drinking Bud Light. They're down, I think, 4 points. I mean, that's massive. Imagine if you invested in Anheuser-Busch and you look after the past week and you lost 4%. Imagine if you were a billionaire and what 4% could actually mean. At this point, I'm sure there are people calling up Bud Light and being like, look, I'm not going to scream and throw a fit over 4%. This is probably going to be temporary, but you got to tell me what you're doing about this. And the pressure is starting to build. Now we have another story. Let me jump to this next story and talk to you about why I don't think this is immediately going to be going away. We have let me see if I can find this one. Here we go. We have this story from the Post Millennial. Bud Light's anti-frat marketing exec busted partying frat style in leaked photos. So apparently someone had these photos or whatever in an album for when they were partying with this woman. And they show that when she came out, so let me slow down and provide context for everybody because we're entering a new segment. This VP came out amid the controversy and said Bud Light was a dying brand and we needed to make it inclusive and get rid of that frat bro image. That's funny. She is that frat bro image. She lived that life. And Bud Light is the #1 selling beer last year and the year before it and so on and so forth. So Bud Light's not a dying brand. That's absolutely not true. And this woman who claims she wants to be inclusive and get away from that frat bro culture is a part of that culture. Now we've got a story piling on. She lied. She lied. She's an occult ideologue who is exploiting this position to take the top selling beer in the world and turn it into a woke cult product, to distribute a woke cult product. What they're really doing is they're not worried about a dying brand. That's the lie. They're taking over by infecting the largest beer brand in the world and turning it woke. That's why I think if this opportunity exists to pounce on this, as they say, and keep talking about it, we should. But more importantly, this story about this woman shows this story's not going away anytime soon. The Post Millennial ran the story. I think New York Post ran the story. A bunch of news outlets are going, and the Daily Mail, they're saying this, hey, we're making money covering this. Let's keep doing it. And that's the problem of the internet age. When people latch onto a viral story and they won't let go, it won't stop. No matter what you do, it will get crazier, it will get worse. And I am hoping that the nightmare tornado of viral memeology, when someone comes to hate something, whips up into a frenzy to the point where this VP is fired, where the marketing teams at Anheuser-Busch are looking at a 10-point drop in their stock, when they're now fielding phone calls from their investors being like, why are we losing this much money? Why isn't this going away? And they say, we're going to have to apologize. And when that happens, what Anheuser-Busch will signal to the entire world is, we screwed up. We can't embrace this ideology. We have lost too much money. And even if they could get loans, it won't matter. If they can get endless ESG capital, it won't matter because they'll ship out products and the regional stores will say, I'm not going to carry that. My customers will revolt. I'm getting a bunch of people in front of my store yelling at me, get out of here. And then they cease to exist. I don't think we're anywhere near that. It's one of the most profitable beverage companies in the world with the top selling beer. But all we need is a double-digit percentage point drop to where Anheuser-Busch says clearly the story won't go away. And we've seen a whole bunch of stories over the past few years when people get obsessed with something and refuse to let go. And you're wondering, how is this story still going viral? How are they still talking about it? Because we're going to keep doing it. Because the people care about it. Because the commentators make money from doing it, because the tabloid media makes money from doing it, and the only way out for Anheuser-Busch is an apology.
I think the Daily Mail had a better, more accurate title for this particular story. They had "Rules for Thee, Not for Me. Bud Light exec demanding beer update its fratty image is seen partying at a 2006 Harvard booze fest and pounding shots from condoms." So yes, that happened, and that's what everyone's talking about. And to go back to kind of Joe Rogan here and to try to steel man his argument, I think what he's trying to say is that he's maybe sick of cancel culture. He's maybe thinking that there might be more important stories there. And I think on the other side, cancel culture has been weaponized. I think it's unavoidable. And I think it's at a point right now where, sadly, in the culture war, it is being used more and more against individuals for doing less and less things. So to have a counterbalance to it is, I think, what you're arguing for, Tim, here. And I'm curious what the audience thinks. Do you think that this is an issue that doesn't really matter to you? Or do you think that this is an issue that we must take seriously in order to kind of hit back against this larger culture war? So I don't know. Let's just see the chat. Press number 1 if you think that this is something that we should be avoiding, that there's bigger stories there. Press number 2 if this is an important issue to you that we should take seriously. I'm curious what people say.
Well, my view of it is when I heard that Joe Rogan cracked open a Bud Light, the most interesting reaction actually was Howard Stern. He didn't get angry. He didn't smack talk. He was confused. I don't understand. Is there something to the story that I'm missing? There is. But Kid Rock's Howard Stern's normal approach to culture war issues is the right are a bunch of Nazi chuds, screw them, et cetera, et cetera. When Kid Rock shot up all that Bud Light and said, F you, Howard Stern didn't get mad. All of a sudden he said, what's going on? Am I missing something here? That's actually what he said. Am I missing something to this story? And he goes, I've always been you can be whatever you want to be as long as you just don't hurt anybody. And therein lies the point. What Dylan Mulvaney is doing is hurting people. It's hurting children. TikTok is promoting an ideology that tells kids to harm themselves. And this is a fact. What we saw in Scandinavia was that child medical transitions did not work, and so they abandoned it. The Tavistock Center clinic in the UK was shut down because child sex changes were not working. But the United States is behind the curve, and they're still promoting this. And TikTok is promoting Dylan Mulvaney to children to then push this ideology on them. That's the issue with why it's bad that Bud Light decided to sponsor Dylan Mulvaney.
Yeah, Dylan just did a month ago a video where he was dressed as a little girl singing a song from some musical as a little
Eloise
girl
or whatever.
Yeah, and now they sponsored him for a beer commercial.
But I think we're almost saying two different things now, because I'm not disagreeing with really anything you just said. We should press. I hope they drop. I hope that I want it. Boycott. Do all that. I'm agreeing with you. This is insane. We should do it. What I'm saying is
you're black-pilled, though. Like there's no way out. There's no solution.
No, that's not what I'm saying. There are solutions, but what I'm saying is that what this is doing, it won't be successful. And let me explain. Let's say Bud Light. Let's say they do come out tomorrow, and that we lost billions of dollars. Hey guys, put out a statement. Hey, we're sorry, and no more the dudes pretending to be chicks on the beers. We're sorry. Sorry about that. Won't happen again. Mm. Now let's be honest here. What's the response to that? The response to Bud Light's apology is so much worse than anything the right will be able to do to Bud Light with sales when it comes to the next 2 months. It would be that they'd have actual violence, because we all know these commie scum are violent. They would have drivers being assaulted. They would have mass demonstrations.
That's the point.
Every Tom, Dick, and Harry celebrity be on Instagram.
That is the
Screw
point.
Bud Light, these Nazis.
That's the point.
They can't afford to backtrack now because they can't afford to offend the religion of the state. That is the one thing they cannot afford to do.
And where you're wrong is, if we get Budweiser to the point where they apologize to us, it means they fear us more than them.
And they don't.
And until we make them by their stock dropping and their products not selling, and they realize their business can't persist by offending their own audience, their own market. That means it has to be sustained and persistent, and it is the easiest thing for anyone on the right to do. Buy a different beer.
No, that I agree. I agree.
This is the point I said. When Budweiser issues an apology to us, it means they are more scared of losing their business from sales than the violence of the left. It is a fact. The left uses violence to win the culture war, and the DOJ protects them, and the police protect them. And if anyone on the right so much as farts, they'll get arrested. A guy can go to a store in San Francisco with a garbage bag and fill up product, and they'll let him go. But if anyone dares try to stop him, they will get arrested. Budweiser knows that, which means if it gets to the point where their sales are gone because we are their customers, not so much me, but I mean, it is regular, it is not 22-year-old college kids for the most part, although to a certain degree it is. But we're talking about people ages 25 to 80 years old. And I'm talking about the average point of death for the average male who are buying beer products. If they decided that the ages of 21 to 24 are more valuable than the entirety of their market share, then so be it. Let them take a look at an 80% sales drop off. They won't do it. If the regional distributors say, I will not carry your product, if the affiliates say, I'm not going to work here anymore because we're not making enough money, and if the shareholders say, why did I lose 10% in 2 weeks? They will be forced to apologize, knowing the left will lose their minds. And that means the economic damage is scarier to them than the left's physical violence. And that is exactly the victory we need. So maybe we lose. The point is, we must persist in the easiest culture war battle that's ever been laid before us so that they are forced to apologize.
I agree. I agree with that 100%. And I will say this. The trans rights movement, I do believe that it is actually a gift from God for this country, because I have watched the right forever, for my entire life, kind of dismiss the newest thing, the newest culture war thing, or not take it that seriously, or they'll stop soon, or surely there's an end to this, or it doesn't apply to me. It's been so easy to play that game. The whole, I'm not going to buy into any slippery slope stuff. I think this whole insane movement has finally woken the right up to that there is no end, that this is not the end. This is not the end either. It gets worse from here. It keeps going down and down and down and down and down. That if we're going to get to the place where we are telling children, and we're going to be telling young boys, just chop your penis off and you'll become a woman, I think that is finally waking the right up to, okay, I'm not dealing with bad. I'm dealing with evil. And that is why the right has failed for so long, because bad may wake up in the morning, like that great C.S. Lewis quote I'm paraphrasing. Bad may wake up in the morning and say, I'm kind of tired. But demons do not. Demons don't wake up and decide they've gone down the drain enough. That's the difference.
Let me tell you, because we did talk about this a bit the other day as well. Yesterday was Ron Paul, but before that, I have gone on Twitter and I have tweeted, spay and neuter your children to prevent overpopulation. Not a peep from the left. I have said, I don't mind abortion rights, and I think the left should have them because they're ending their lineage, and so the future will be conservative. Not a peep. Nobody cared. No leftist said, how dare you say something so offensive? Well, the reality is they know it, and I think they're, in many ways, they know that abortion and sterilizing their children will result in less liberals and the future being more conservative. That's why they have to go to the schools. They don't want to highlight the issue and say Tim Pool said an awful thing, because it puts in the mind of all the liberals that, hey, wait a minute, we are getting rid of our kids. Now, of course, the response from liberals is, Tim, liberals have children too. And I'm like, oh yeah, but like 1.2 on average for every 2 adults, whereas conservatives have 2 per 2 adults. So conservatives certainly aren't at replacement levels. They're at or slightly below, but liberals are substantially lower and have been over the past 20 years. You add to the fact that you are pro-abortion and more likely to have an abortion or sterilize yourself or your kids, it's going to go even lower. And given a long enough time, the math is simple. Your ideology and your family lineage and your genealogy will cease to exist. Now, here's the point. They not once have smeared me over saying things like that. But you know what they smeared me over relentlessly? Budweiser. Yeah. You know why? Over Target. The fact that a major corporation, for no reason, the number one selling beer, the fact that they decided to embrace wokeness has resulted in a 4 percentage point stock drop off, $5 billion, is scary. Because there's other companies that aren't as big as Anheuser-Busch, who maybe Anheuser-Busch will be okay. These other companies couldn't handle that. These other companies couldn't say, we can't handle all our regional distributors cutting off our brand. If we adopt this ESG stuff, we're going to go to business. Look at the backlash. I'm not going anywhere near that. That is the social pressure we are trying to create right now. And the point is this. I will push on this as hard as possible because for once we are seeing quite possibly the easiest culture war battle ever before us. You don't got to go outside. In fact, quite the opposite.
You don't even have to not
Stay
buy
home.
beer. You don't even have to not buy beer. Go buy all the beer you want. Just buy a different one.
Yeah, avoid Anheuser-Busch brands. Buy a local brewery.
Be careful with those too, by the way, because Anheuser-Busch has been buying those up. One of my favorite local ones in Houston, bought up by Anheuser-Busch. So make sure you look that up first.
So, someone published a list of all the companies that they own and all the breweries that they have, and it's multiple tweets of things. I tweeted it
Goose
on
Island.
We Are Changed so people could see it. There's a large number.
That's right.
Of them.
It's
Goose Island.
Anheuser-Busch was bought by InBev. So the company's called AB-InBev. That's the new company. It's called InBev.
And then iPatch McCain, what's his name? Crenshaw was also promoting another beer owned by Anheuser-Busch.
Right.
And
Miller Coors has done a lot of Pride stuff as well.
Exactly.
However, I don't care as much about that. I don't care that, this is the funny, they're like, haha, Marjorie Taylor Greene, you're saying buy Miller Coors, but here's their LGBT Pride ad. And my response is, oh, wow, that's really cool. They did an LGBT Pride ad. I have no problem with that. My problem is that Dylan Mulvaney is targeting children. You want to sell beer to kids? Yeah, I got a problem with that. You want to tell kids to sterilize themselves? I got a problem with that. You want to promote those ideas to kids? I got a problem with that. And so if we can simply say, hey, look, man, Dylan can post whatever Dylan wants on TikTok. Budweiser can sponsor whoever they want, and then we won't touch their products. So, dude, that's the market.
It was actually...
Go ahead.
It's not... No, beer commercials aren't... No, never mind. I was going to say...
Let me jump to the story. So for all those that are concerned, we have this story from Timcast.com. Conservative Dad's Ultra Right Beer introduced combating Dylan Mulvaney's sponsorship by Bud Light. To the rest of you woke corporations, stay the F away from our kids. Now I want to say two things. I'll say three things. First, I am not promoting or encouraging anyone to buy this beer. It's an alcoholic product. I'm not big on beer, but now you know it exists, so do of your own volition. I will also say it is good that conservatives are creating alternatives by whatever means necessary to compete with these woke corporations, creating a market opportunity to say, hey, you're worried about what beer you might buy? Here's a beer that you don't got to worry about. But more importantly, it's what Seth Weathers, who co-founded this, said, stay the F away from our kids. So when Howard Stern said, I don't understand why Kid Rock is so mad, it's not... Nobody screamed and cried, at least to this degree, because Coors put a pride flag ad out and said Miller Coors supports LGBT pride. They sell tons of beer in gay neighborhoods. Nobody cried about that. It's been going on for 2-3 generations or whatever. They're angry that people like Dylan Mulvaney target children, and the woke corporations are targeting children. And I'll just say it's twofold. Why is a beer company sponsoring an individual whose primary audience is teenagers? That's just like, didn't we have this huge thing about Joe Camel and cartoons marketing cigarettes to kids?
Those
yeah,
were
well,
awesome
the VP
cartoons,
said,
by the way.
Those are awesome cartoons.
The VP did say she wants a younger audience. She wants young people to drink, or the brand would, quote, die. And that to me,
That's a
in
lie.
itself, that to me, well, whether it's a lie or not, it's still coming from a mentality of, I want young kids to drink beer, which is absolutely horrible for them, horrible for their cognitive function. There's some studies even showing how people in their 20s have their brains still developing. So to have that skewed and manipulated and hurt in so many different ways by alcohol, that's something else that should be called out here. And instead of saying, hey, let's drink another beer, hey, don't drink that poison at all. It's full of endocrine disruptors. It's filled with fluoride. It's filled with horrible substances that are really bad for you. And I think this is an opportunity to say, hey, I'm not going to poison myself, and let's not poison each other either. Let's make an alternative, better choice for ourselves.
Well, I agree. I don't drink beer. I think beer is bad. But I think the overwhelming majority of human beings on the planet love beer, and beer is actually responsible for human civilization as it is. Do you guys know this?
Yeah, with the water and the bacteria in there.
No. I mean, that's true too. Yeah. But the issue was that humans were nomadic until we discovered the beer making process, or a rudimentary form of it, and then we had to stop moving around so that the beer could ferment. we liked beer so much, we were like, let's just stick around here and grow more of this stuff to make more of that stuff. And so I don't know if it's true. It's an urban legend or whatever. They say that beer was the beginning of agriculture for us because we were like, yo, this stuff makes me feel good. And so we wanted to make more of it. So I think beer's great. I think there are a lot of people that understand drinking heavily is bad for you, but cracking open a cold one with the boys after a long, hard day of work, you show up to the bar or whatever, and you grab an ice cold ultra right, and then you're just relaxing with everybody, and you're ribbing each other, and you're having a good time. I can certainly understand why people enjoy that moment. And I think it's fairly obvious as to why this story became so big. It's because, let me slow down and put it this way. Like 5 years ago, I said, sooner or later, the woke stuff will come to Major League Sports, and people will start to understand what it really is. The rules of the NBA are arbitrary. We made them up. It's a social construct. We decided where the free throw line is. We decided how many players are on a team. And we could decide that half the team should be women. And that will happen. Now, it's happening in the other direction. It's happening to women's teams first. But I said this was going to happen. I thought that when it got to the point where someone like Colin Kaepernick would kneel, or the NFL would be forced to have half of their football team be women, that's when you'd see a major revolt because regular people love sports and all that. But while sports did play a big role with people being upset, it didn't go that far. I should have made the obvious prediction. Beer. You screw with dudes' beer and they're going to lose it. Yeah. And now you got a bunch of regular guys being like, why is my beer gay? And now they're asking that question and it's spreading.
And the morality of it still has to be considered here, because if you're Dylan Mulvaney, right, and you look at your TikTok, you're like, oh, what's my analytics? Who am I reaching? Who am I talking to? Who's my core audience? I'll bet I'll bet a lot of money right now that it's probably a lot of underage children. Yep. And then to say, hey kids, look at me, drink some beer, have fun, ha ha ha. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely disgusting. That's something that should have been called out here by the mainline society, saying, hey, even Anheuser-Busch should have said, who's the core audience here? Why are we trying to advertise to small children for an alcoholic beverage that will stunt their cognitive function and growth? That right there should be the conversation, the discussion, and is repugnant and disgusting in its face.
This is what I was going to bring up earlier. I believe that it's illegal for beer commercials on TV to show people drinking the beer in the commercial. They're allowed to hold it and show it and have it, but if they actually drink it, it's become illegal. As far as I know, that's illegal. But in this, somehow, because it's on the internet, they're allowed to. That it should be a violation. That's illegal. You can't. Dylan Mulvaney was sipping that thing in the bathtub in that commercial. So I need Congress involved.
Forget about the laws here. Let's just talk about the morality.
Well, let's talk about this. I looked it up. Apparently, the average age of a TikTok user is just under 21 years old. So you have an individual whose primary audience, and I believe Dylan Mulvaney's audience is probably younger than that. The reason why the average age of a TikTok user is just under 21 is because you have to factor in the amount of people who are older than that and how it averages out in the age. And that means it's probably, I would say the median age, the plurality of users are probably around 16, 17, maybe 18 years old. You then have a smaller portion, which are probably in their late 30s, 40s, or whatever. And then it averages out and it pulls up the average age a little bit, making it sound like the average person is older, when in actuality, the majority of users are probably well under 21. I think Dylan Mulvaney's audience is probably 14, 15. And TikTok is targeting these kids intentionally.
And you're a role model. You're a role model for a lot of younger individuals. And the same, let's be honest here, it goes for Joe Rogan. If you take a can of beer and you open it, you're inspiring other people to do that as well. And some people may say, oh, you're making too much of a big deal of it. But little things like that, little impressions like that absolutely matter, especially with what you endorse, what you drink, and how many people look up to you as a role model, as you're going to have a lot of people copying you. And those are decisions that I think people should be thinking about seriously if they're, influencers.
But why can't we accept, and I know you probably do, but why can't we accept that that's why they do it? They know they're role models. They know. I believe the right is finally getting better at waking up as we realize what horrible anti-human scum these people are. They're after your kids on purpose. They're on Nick Jr. for a reason. They're on TikTok to 15-year-olds for a reason. They're on Disney for a reason. They didn't trip and say, oh, whoops, I'm at Disney with your 5-year-old. They're after your kids on purpose.
Oh, let me elaborate real quick. When we're talking about mastectomies for children, when they're giving young girls mastectomies, we actually looked up the stats, and it's in the thousands, I believe. It's like over the past few years, it's like a couple thousand. And the left will say something like, why do you care so much? It doesn't happen. Then why was it? I think it was Blue's Clues, which is a children's show, depicted a character with mastectomy scars. Why would they want kids to see that? Well, I believe it was. Let me make sure I can look this up and get it right. I think it was on Blue's Clues. There was a Pride event showing characters with mastectomy scars. So,
I'll give you a correction while you're doing that. It's not illegal to show people drinking beer on TV. It's highly frowned upon by the television agencies, since it's like a post-prohibition thing. I was told a long time ago that it was illegal, and that's why we don't see it. But apparently, it's just a voluntary thing that they don't. So I guess
look at this. Here you go. Snopes. Did Blue's Clues Pride Parade feature a beaver with top scars? True. That's from Snopes. Now, why are they showing your children pride parades with people with top scars? The issue is, I may not be, like, when they come out and they say something like, oh, not that many kids are getting it, you're exaggerating. It's like, I never came out and said every kid was getting it. This is the weird thing. When Matt Walsh was on Joe Rogan, and Rogan asked Matt Walsh how many kids are doing this, Matt Walsh, what did he say, millions or something like that? He said some ridiculous number, and then everyone called him out because it's thousands. It's in terms of cross-sex hormones, I think it's around 50,000. In terms of puberty blockers, it's like 17,000, and in terms of mastectomies for adolescent girls, it's in the thousands, like between 1,000 and 2,000. And I was like, well, I can't speak for anybody else, but I never came out and said, oh, heavens me, there's too many kids getting this. It must be in the millions. I was like, one kid getting this is not good. And you know why? Because in Scandinavia, they piloted this and then said, whoa, this isn't working, and abandoned it. And in the UK, they piloted this and then said, whoa, this is not working, and abandoned it. And not only were the children that they were trying to treat still suicidal or depressed, the surgeries and the medical intervention actually increased or made these things worse or did nothing at all. So all it does is increase risk. My point is, why are we encouraging children to do it? It's if you're going to come out and be like, it's only 50,000 on these hormones, then I'll be like, okay, if you don't think that's too many, what would be too many? If the left says, who cares, not that many kids are getting it, my response is, what is the number by which you would then say, I am allowed to be concerned that children are undergoing treatments that we've already seen in other countries fail? What's the number? Is it not 50? Is it 75? Is it 100? Is it 200? Okay, here's the point. If Blue's Clues keeps pushing this stuff, give it 5-10 years, we will be at 100,000. How about we just call it out right now and say, let's not get to that number?
Well, let's be honest. We're not going near far enough to stop it right now either. I'm glad we're finally waking up and finally calling it out. And
what do you mean, though? We're passing laws. We're banning it across the country.
Passing laws? We have the biggest children's organization in the United States of America, Disney, sexually grooming children with this stuff over and over and over again. And I realize, and I applaud Florida for what they're doing, going after tax-exempt status. We're a nation with many children in it. If you have a corporation in your nation that has dedicated part of its mission to attacking the children of your nation, that corporation should immediately be shut down. Immediately. Should send in the National Guard. Should send in the Marines, empty it out and fire everybody. Well, if we're interested in real solutions, okay, so we're banning it in what? A few states? What, we're at 20 states now? Okay, so by my math, that leaves
in a couple of years.
That leaves us 30 states who are still doing it, and we'll slowly, incrementally do this. And what's going to happen is we're eventually going to have a bunch of kind of red states where you can't do most of this stuff, but you can do a little. And then these blue Sodom and Gomorrah freaking hellholes where Dr. Frankenstein is just operating on these kids every other day. And where did we end up? We ended up still evil. We ended up still bad. It's exactly right. We're not nipping it in the bud in the right way. But we're finally engaging, but we're still taking half measures. All we do is half measure after half measure.
I disagree, because I don't think there's much beyond making it illegal. If we're headed towards a point where, and I've talked about this, we had the story of Jeff Younger, I believe his name was. He was on this show.
Yeah, Jeff.
He has a kid who his wife took to California, which is a sanctuary.
I remember.
And I'm like, look, man, the number one thing we don't want We don't want civil war. We don't want divorce. We don't want violence, because then China wins. Because then our foreign adversaries just take over, and the U.S. it'll be conflict nobody wants to experience. But if they are unwilling, if I'll put it this way, the right tends to be, as a collective, whatever you would call the right in the culture war, I would say actually relatively of limited morals. Meaning the Christian conservatives are particularly moralistic and have a set of morals, but then you have a lot of libertarians, you have a lot of traditional liberals, and the morals within this group are disparate. They differ. The one thing they hold is like truth. What is true? What is not true? So you can have an individual like Jimmy Dore who disagrees on economic policy for opinion reasons based on what we don't know to be absolute, but he'll tell you, oh yeah, these things did happen. I agree with you. You're right. That news story did happen. I read that. That's true. And so the issue I see is, with everything the left is doing pertaining to the expansion of abortion to the point of birth and the, what do they call them, gender-affirming sanctuaries, the only end result of all of this, in my opinion, is going to be conflict. Because of I'll take a look at history. We take a look at the history of the Civil War and the moral issues surrounding slavery. And what was it? There were a lot of people in northern states, and despite the fact that Northerners were extremely racist and they overall did not care about slavery, there were large factions of abolitionists who only cared about slavery and were willing to travel to other states and territories to outright murder people to end slavery. And there's interesting questions about, do we believe those people were morally justified? So let's stop and put it this way. Do people hold John Brown in high esteem? The answer is yes, they do. Despite the fact that he was a murderous terrorist. Despite the fact that he and his sons would walk up to slave owners and just murder them. And for me, I'm kind of like, I think that's a bad thing, and we don't want anything like that happening now. Because you have to understand what that means. It means either Antifa will determine that our systems, our institutions, are worthy of being burnt to the ground, which they do, and the violence will escalate. Or then you get conservatives who act like John Brown, which only makes the conflict worse, and then you end up in mass war. The question of who wins, I'm not entirely sure. I will just say, I don't know, with watching all of this, at what point people come back together and this country heals, and I'm not convinced it's possible. Because you look at what happened in 2020 with the election war game, where apparently John Podesta, role-playing this game, said that if Donald Trump were to have won in 2020, the West Coast states should secede from the Union. Like, where does all of this lead to?
The secession and the breakup of the United States talk. James Lindsay was talking to Vivek Ramaswamy on Vivek's YouTube channel a few days ago, and they were saying it's like in war, in combat. If you want to destroy your enemy, you do not surround them. Because if you surround them, they'll fight to the death. If you want to destroy your enemy, you surround them on 3 sides and you give them one escape route. And then when they flee, when they see that route and they take it and they flee, that's when you jump on them and destroy them when they're routing. So
that's
same in the
happening
culture
a lot
war.
in Ukraine right now, too, by the way.
It's the same in the culture war. What's happening is they're giving people an escape route in the guise of national divorce. And that's the mistake. Do not take that path. That's the destruction of everything, is if we think that dissolution is...
States.
Yeah, if we assume the path is the dissolution, then
Maybe.
Now, hold on.
that's one escape route that we've been given. In
What
the culture
United
war.
States?
These United States.
No. What United States? The one we want to exist, or the one that actually exists? Like, we've been talking about things like Tim keeps bringing up about European nations far ahead of us who have stopped these horrible procedures for children. But let's keep going back. Let's keep going back to COVID. These European nations that I personally, and I know many of us have mocked, look at socialist idiot Europeans, were far ahead of us here. We here in the United States of America, especially on the right, we have a very nostalgic view of the country that we still think exists. Now, there are still gigantic pockets of this country that do exist in that way. But the government in its current form, and I will include our education system, entertainment system, our sports systems, this country is one of the most broken and corrupt countries in the entire planet. And it's not even a question about it.
Yep.
One of the most broken and corrupt countries in the entire planet. What United States are we talking about? Because it's not the United States of Grandpa and World War II on the beaches of Normandy. And it's not the United States of America from the year 2000. It's the United States of America where our pride flags fly from embassies across. We sexually mutilate children in this nation over and over again. We have politician after politician after politician in this country that took part in all that COVID madness, dumping all over everybody, keeping their seats of power after they did so. They all got richer. While we have inflation raging and mom and pops can't buy eggs at the grocery store, the United States GOP and Democrats in the Senate came together and passed a $1.7 trillion bill that was just a big handout to all of their friends. It didn't even pretend like it did anything for the people.
Then we can say this.
We don't have a United States of America.
We have a sinking
That's a
ship.
lie. We don't have a United States. That's a nostalgic lie.
Then that's it.
No, that's not it. But let's acknowledge reality. We
how
still
is it
have
not it?
huge pockets of the country that can be saved. But let's stop talking about we the people. There ain't no we the people. Everyone's seen that poll. I'm sure you guys have talked about it on the show. What was it? 68% of Democrats thought you should be arrested or locked in your home if you didn't take a COVID vaccine. Don't tell me I'm sharing a country with that person. That person's my enemy,
So
and I'm
this
his
is
enemy.
it. That's it.
Of course,
Ron
of
Paul,
course.
last night-
We're a late stage republic, is what we are. We're a late stage republic.
Last
And,
night,
we're,
Ron,
and the next stage is what? Empire?
No, I hope not. I believe that it's empire because history probably says that it's empire, and that's just freaking
Someone
terrible.
will cross the Rubicon.
Yeah,
then-
that's freaking horrible. But yeah, I believe the era, and this really sucks because I love teeny tiny government. I believe the era of limited government is laughably past us. That we will never get back to that again because the only people who crave limited government are people who've experienced real tyranny, like the founders have. But since we haven't really experienced the teeth of that yet, now it's just big government right and big government yet left. So it's either empire, or whether it's some official divorce or secession or whatever kind of crazy word you want to put on it, we are living in two Americas, and you better get to the part where they don't want to cut your son's penis off, and you better get there now because the other part ain't backing off. They're not apologizing. They're not moderating. They're not backing away. In fact, they're taking our people and they're throwing them in prison.
Which is why don't buy Anheuser-Busch.
No
Bud Light.
Exactly right.
Ron Paul
Bud
last
Light,
night,
no more.
he said there was a coup in the United States in 1963 when the government killed Kennedy. And it just shook me. I think he's right. And I don't know what to do about it.
The Federal Bureau of Investigation just got busted infiltrating the Catholic Church. I brought up this point recently, and I want people to really take in what this means. When the United States government, when they mission focus on one enemy, they destroy that enemy. They've done it in the past with the Soviet Union, Cold War, focus, everything, CIA, FBI, government policy, your economic policy, your military, everything, focus, destroy the Soviet Union, took them down. Then we focused on Islamic Jihad. Don't get started, Luke. We got focused on Islamic Jihad.
The CIA.
And how many of those people did we kill across the planet? And I'm not bad-mouthing killing terrorists. How many did we kill across the planet?
Millions.
And people need to understand now that same mission focus across NSA, CIA, FBI, United States government, State Department, they are mission focused on the American right within our borders. We will have people say
And
things
you know
like
what?
they're destroying our military. No, they're purging the dissident right out of the military
And the
because
police.
they're rebuilding, and the police, because they're building one, and they're building one for a different purpose. I don't believe in this idea that we're just one election away from holding hands, because no, we're not.
Well, I certainly don't think so either. And I've been talking about this. It's been a couple of years, actually. There was a video where a guy is attacked by Antifa and is fleeing, and the police show up, apologize to Antifa, and arrest him.
Yep. And I saw the same thing in Dallas, Texas. Red state of Dallas, Texas. Some child drag show, and of course Antifa shows up to beat up anyone who protests it. And the Dallas Police Department, not the Antifa guys in mass with weapons, they mobbed the one dude who was trying to walk down the sidewalk by himself, and he's yelling at him. He said, "Why are you harassing me? There's the angry, violent mob right there."
We saw this in Canada. It was
trucker protest.
Press for Truth. Press for Truth.
Yes, Press for Truth. Dan Dix recorded the videotape.
He was filming, and he got surrounded by far left extremists. So the police grabbed him and said, "If you don't leave, we'll arrest you." And he said, "What? They attacked me. We don't care. Get out, or we'll arrest you." And so this is the thing. I got to tell you, part of it feels really good. I imagine Luke is probably, every so often smiling a little bit, that conservatives who supported all of the expansion of police powers and of DHS and things like that in the Patriot Act are now the ones who are being targeted by it, because it's probably a bit of schadenfreude. The only problem is we're all caught in the same maelstrom.
Yeah, definitely not smiling, since, again, this is affecting everyone. And people have to understand this is also going to affect the left as well. The revolution eats its own. And
First.
Exactly. And when we look at historically what happens during these big political shifts, especially in China, especially during the Cultural Revolution, especially in the Soviet Union, you see a lot of the top members. You see a lot of the people who helped this new party get into power be purged right away, sacrificed, murdered, and genocided in so many different ways. And this is why this is such a dangerous turning point in America. And after 9/11, I was warning people, hey, the Patriot Act, destroying the Constitution, spying on American citizens, torturing, renditioning people, drone bombing and killing people that are American citizens, maybe is not a good idea. And I think this is why the right doesn't have as much leverage, doesn't have as much respect, and why we have such a big cultural pushback, because during the Bush years, they have essentially destroyed this country, destroyed the U.S. Constitution, indebted this country, printed money out of thin air, and has led us to this horrible situation where now the people on the left are like, well, if they get in power, they're going to create more war. They're going to destroy our Constitution, so we got to do it first. And now the Democrats are doing it. And now the Republicans are where the Democrats used to be, and the seats are changing. But in reality, we're just being propelled left and right towards this totalitarian statist hellhole. And more people are saying we just got to vote for the lesser of two evils. And this is what led us here. And we've been warning about it. We've been warning about it for such a long time.
Well,
and everyone said, you're crazy, you're kooky, you're a conspiracy theorist. Nope. Here we are today. And and I don't know how we're going to go back.
Shout out to Dr. Ron Paul. We had him on last night. It was an honor and a privilege. And Luke shared with me a meme from the show. So Luke's sitting over here and he asks of Dr. Paul, are they malicious or are they ignorant? I said, are they stupid or are they evil? And what did Dr. Paul say?
Ron Paul just smiles like, yes. And I was like, which one? He was like, no, yes. And,
both.
Yeah, great response. And then he talked about how they are ignorant and they are absolutely evil in many instances. And this is what happens when you have this two kind of duopoly system that has hijacked our government. And again, when it comes to, even the administration before this, the national debt, the lockdowns, the emergencies, that doesn't help anyone as well. Printing money out of thin air, giving everyone $2,000 checks, which amounted to nothing, by the way, compared to all the corporate banking bailouts, which, as you said, were huge sums of money that they just gave their friends.
Republicans and Democrats.
Exactly.
Republicans and Democrats. Republicans were all for lockdowns. Republicans were all for passing these $1 trillion bills, just like the Democrats
They were attacking Sweden.
Of course they were.
They were attacking Sweden and their own fellow Republican politicians that were like, maybe 15 days to slow the spread is a really bad idea when we allow Walmart to be open, but we shut down the small mom and pop stores. Maybe that's a bad idea. And then the president of the United States at the time attacked that politician very viciously. And let's call it out here. Let's be honest with ourselves, because I think this is a major issue of concern and major issues that are holding the right back from actually achieving something good. And again, this is why I don't have a lot of faith in the right. I have a lot of faith in the American people that don't vote, that don't support the system, that are sick and tired of this bullcrap and are taking matters into their own hands by being personally responsible.
I think we're on a track to victory, to be completely honest. I think we win at the end of all of this. I think the future will be 50 to 100 years. The country will be much more patriotic. It will be much more like, as you put it, World War II, Greatest Generation, go America. I'll give you a few reasons why. If we follow the Strauss-Howe generational theory, we are in the fourth turning, which means just by the nature of how generations operate, we are in the worst of it. And the worst of it will create strong men who will create good times, who will in turn then later on create weak men. But that means the next phase is the first. We're in the fourth turning, a period of tumult will happen, and then there will be a period where we start picking up and climbing up. So I think we're seeing the worst of it now. Over the next couple of years, it's predicted to get very bad. Maybe it's World War III, maybe it's Civil War, maybe it's hot war, maybe it's not. And then we'll have a period where the strong men start to rebuild, as we have seen throughout history in this country and many others. The other issue that I think is worth pointing out is that conservatives have kids. They may not have enough kids, but all that matters is they have twice as many as liberals. Liberals are more likely to abort their kids, more likely to sterilize themselves and their kids. And conservatives right now have actually been pushing the talking point of having as many kids as possible, which means we may actually see a boost due to the culture among what I would just refer to as the freedom faction, because it's not just conservatives, it's also disaffected liberals and libertarians. People are saying, have more kids, have at least 2, have 3, because liberals are having 1 on average. And if that, give that 20 years, and you know what that means? If every conservative family has 4 children right now, in 20 years, you will have 4 times the youth voter base. Now, of course, the left tries to indoctrinate your kids, but what else are we seeing in the cultural zeitgeist among the right is homeschool your kids, bring your kids into homeschooling pods, and get away from these schools. The other big factor that I think shows we're on a path to victory is the fleeing of these urban centers to places like Florida and Texas. People who actually pay attention are moving away from these nightmarish hellholes. And the best part, I suppose the worst part for people who live in the cities, we just saw in Portland, Coava, a coffee shop, announce finally they were shutting their doors down because the violence and extremism had grown too much for them to handle and they couldn't take care of their employees. Industry is collapsing and they will soon have no access to resources. The one benefit the United States had over, say, the Soviet Union is that when the revolution happened, they top down just started killing people and implemented their weirdo communist garbage and destroyed everything. But we have the Second Amendment. And we're a very, very large country with smaller subcultures within this country, which means when California, LA, and SF, for instance, get woke, they go broke. It will be extremely difficult for the law enforcement of California to go to Texas to force their way of life. What does that mean? As you mentioned earlier, Jesse, there are pockets of this country that are still going strong and can be saved. It doesn't matter. Those pockets aren't going to go anywhere. You're not going to be able to go in there and take them down. In fact, Texas is turning more red. Florida became a reliable red state, which means when California collapses under the weight of its Democrat policy garbage, we're now seeing, I covered this story. I did a segment on this earlier, but I'm putting it up on Friday. Homeless camps popping up in Beverly Hills. You know what that means? It means all of these Hollywood celebrities who invested their money in property are not going to have a penny to give grandma because they're going to be underwater. Hey, look, I got a $5 million movie contract, so I bought a $10 million house. Now I got an $8 million loan on that house, but it's only worth $5 million. I can't sell it. What can I do with it? Nobody wants to come here. There's homeless people and crime everywhere. Guess what? In places like Texas and Florida, things are getting better. In West Virginia, things are getting better. But in the big cities, things are getting worse. As long as all of this continues, the insulated and somewhat isolated conservative pockets that are thriving will thrive. The institutions of the left will eat themselves and destroy themselves. The beer companies will collapse for trying to sell beer to children that don't want to drink it, or I should say to young college kids, destroying their market. There's a reason why we say get woke, go broke. It's a tendency, not a law. Over a long enough period of time, we have seen more than enough examples of companies embracing wokeness and then losing money because of it. Now, of course, they have institutional capture. They've got weapons in the federal government, but I don't think in the long run that matters because the weight is pressing on them, not us. We are the people who are living outside of the cities, who are leaving these cities and getting away from it and then thriving. Places like Florida, where Ron DeSantis already locked down, but he reopened up. And then people flooded to Florida, where there's beautiful beaches, there's great weather, and people are having a party. Then there's Texas. Texas is turning redder as well because people are coming here because they want freedom, which means all of the attempts of the left to take over has created an inverse pressure system, which is sending people out of their states, which costs them power, which reduces their revenue, reduces their income, reduces their influence, and then they abort and sterilize their kids. So certainly we want to stop all these bad things, but I think the long run is if we sat back and just said, stay the course and keep doing everything you're doing, I think in 100 years, it's over. We completely won. But if we persist in the culture war and make sure we're homeschooling our kids, make sure we aren't buying Anheuser-Busch products, 20 to 30 years. 20 to 30 years of conservatives having 4 kids each, and you've got a voting bloc that has been raised on winning a culture war. And that's all that matters. 4 times the new voters entering the system, and it's not even 20, it's 18 years. In 18 years, from this day, conservatives can have 4 more votes per family. That's 1 for you, 1 for your significant other, and 4 kids. Granted, you're not going to have 4 kids all at once. So maybe within the span of 23 years, you might have 4 kids who are of voting age, but liberals aren't going to have any of that.
I would say maybe, and that's a very optimistic look and perspective to have there, which again is important to kind of explore here. But when we have open immigration, when we have populations being replaced in California, in New York, with another voting base that particularly votes left, with them also making very significant moves against the Second Amendment, with them crashing the petrodollar, with a native population crash of the Western world, I think we're dealing with something very severe that could also happen in the exact inverse as you described here, as we're dealing with an anti-human agenda that encourages the destruction of the family unit, stops reproduction, and pushes a larger depopulation agenda that, of course, is a total totalitarian control grid. So on those aspects, it could swing either way, but that open immigration problem is something also that I think we should be looking at.
I think the southern border is a crisis. I think it is an issue, and I think there's a reason why Democrats don't want to shut the border down, to actually control it. Given 10 years, California brings in more and more people, and a lot of people on the right say it's because they're voting illegally. They're not. They don't need to vote. The population of illegal immigrants gives them more electoral votes, period. And electoral votes are the real votes that matter. California knows this. New York knows this. Joe Biden knows this. That's why they bring in people, bring them to these states. It changes the electoral makeup, not by having them vote, by increasing the amount of districts in the state. So I think in 2010, California had one extra congressional vote based on non-citizens. So they're not voting, but they're getting a vote.
I don't think
What do you
voting
think, Jesse?
matters anymore.
Are you optimistic or pessimistic from the two perspectives and sides you heard here?
Oh, he's way too optimistic. There's no way. And here's why. I would agree with you. Our big challenge right now is waking up the normie right. And this is going to be the challenge of what I'm about to say, because it's not going to apply to anybody who watches Timcast any night. I'm talking about my neighbors. All my neighbors, 92, 93% Republican neighborhood. We get together every weekend. We're all having a blast. We drink beer, Luke. We play horseshoes. We have crawfish boils. The kids play in the yard. It's a blast. They agree with me on all my values. They agree with everyone in this room in general. Obviously, we're all different in our basic values.
But they're putting their kids in college?
Oh, man, I'm so proud. Little Aiden got into Stanford. I'm so excited. Where'd Jaden go? Oh, Jaden got into Harvard. That's exciting. The people who share our values are so out of touch with how evil the traditional institutions are in this nation, the institutions that they previously have attended, and that they will not only still patronize these institutions, they'll write them big checks, they'll send their kids there, and then they'll come to neighborhood parties and brag about it. And I'll just sit there with my jaw hanging open, because I know the love and care that parent took with that kid. I know that kid, 18 years of love and care and values and manners, and you're so proud, but you're so unplugged. You're so not wired in that you send them off to the wolves. And like clockwork, 2 years later, Jesse, I can't believe it. Aiden came home. He's got 20 rings in his face and a Joe Biden sticker on his car. And he hates my guts. And what do you want me to tell you? The normie right, the leave me alone right. I just want to go to work. I just want to play. I just want to watch football.
It's not just the normie right. Do you know how many people we've had on this show who talk about the exact same thing? We've had conservative guests come on this show who complain about the left, say, yeah, my kid just got into college, so I'm really excited for that. And I'm like, do you listen to your own videos?
Yeah. I know. I go through the same thing. I go through the same thing with people I know, with people I love. The right has such a difficult time accepting where we are. And I understand that, because that's human nature. I don't even just want to indict the right. It is human nature to deny the reality of your situation for as long as you possibly can, because it's that bad, or you don't want to bother with it. This is why I laugh and mock people on the right when they say things like, well, we're the silent majority. What does that matter? Majority means nothing. They grab the seats of power. They find the chokeholds of power. That's why the right will sit there and scream all day long when there's some child drag show in their blood red town in Oklahoma somewhere. You know why? Because you were busy being the silent majority, and the communists were busy taking over your public library, taking over your city government. While you were flipping burgers and playing fantasy football, he was grabbing the seats of power. And when you explain these things to them, they're shocked. I remember this like it was yesterday. One night, just one last point on this. One night I'm sitting around the table, there's 10 couples there, and we're all, and I don't talk a lot of politics. They all know what I do, but I don't like to do that at a party, so I just kind of chill and relax. But it came up, someone asked me about something, and I brought up ESG. Now, we're talking with successful people here, all of them wired in, our values, successful people here. Not one man or woman at that table had ever even heard ESG. And when I explained what ESG was and told them all, I said, everyone right now, pick up your cell phone and look up your bank. I guarantee your bank has a dedicated ESG page on it. They all thought I was a nut job conspiracy theorist. You could have heard a pin drop in there over the next 5 minutes as they discovered the reality of the world they live in. Until the normie right that shares normal values realizes it's in a war, a culture war, and there will be one victor. 20 years? Pfft, maybe 100. They've got a lot of waking up to do, and it's going to take years to do.
They're rebranding ESG, by the way, according to James Lindsay. You're going to stop hearing it. They'll be like, no, ESG was crazy. Now it's called like global something. I'll bring that up tomorrow to clarify. You know, you talked about people denying reality until the very last second when it's painful. I think that with voting. I don't think voting matters anymore.
Yeah, well, it may or may not. Now, this is what I want to explain. Obviously, they cheat in elections. And when I say that, don't tell me they don't. There's a reason the entire Democratic Party thinks voter ID is illegal. It should be illegal. That's insane. You should obviously have to show an ID. The only reason you wouldn't want that is because you cheat and want to cheat some more. So don't tell me they don't cheat. But setting that aside, the right, again, back to the normie right, even people who are activists of some way. You know what our participation is in primaries? 20%. Democrats participate 50% in primaries.
Look at Wisconsin.
Yeah, exactly. Republicans, 20%. So we wonder why the Democratic Party's gone full-blown communist in the past 10 years, and yet we still have a bunch of limp-wristed losers running the low-T GOP in this country. That's because the communists show up and vote, and what do? We throw a Trump sticker on our car and say, Donald Trump will save us, and we skip the local primary, or even worse, we show up and vote for the same turd who just voted for everything.
But listen, I agree with you on all that, but I don't think that changes anything I just said.
Well, what you said that I don't agree with.
Because having kids is not enough. It's important, but it's not grabbing the seats of power. If you're going to grab kids and still send Aiden off to Stanford, then it's not a net gain.
That I understand, but that still doesn't matter. Well, the cities are destroying themselves. This stuff doesn't work. If someone came to me and said, I am deeply concerned by this new movement of people who are, harming themselves, I'd be like, well, over a long enough period of time, they won't exist because they've harmed themselves.
You could say that about the CCP having the one-child policy, but they didn't destroy themselves because they have such an authoritarian, weaponized system.
But that's not what I'm talking about. See, the thing about the CCP is that they just kidnap and murder people. And while the United States certainly has those capabilities as well, they're not. The U.S. has safeguards and protections that I think will be weakened, be damaged, are being eroded, but will probably stand strong enough to where I think over the long enough period of time, a combination of factors, the foundation of this country and the Constitution itself, with all the attacks against it, and the fact that it's big and partially decentralized, more so than many of the other countries. As long as we keep up the culture war battle, as long as we say, don't buy Anheuser-Busch, here's all you got to do, Jesse. When you have those parties, just let your neighbors, the couples that are coming over, say, hey, don't buy any beer. My treat, I'm taking care of it. Then you go and you buy the beer and you don't buy Busch.
On that one, I will say this for some good news. This past weekend was probably the first weekend I hung out with those same neighbors where, to a man, every Tom, Dick, and Harry showed up and they were all talking about the Bud Light thing and it was all negative. This was the thing that really snapped them into.
That's what I'm saying.
Crap,
economic
these people were nuts. Yeah, this was the thing. They all brought it to me. Got to get rid of the Bud Light. Good grief, this is horrible. Won't be buying that again.
That's what I'm saying. When I saw the reaction to the Bud Light story, I said, I think we have an opportunity to reach regular people with this. Yeah. Striking at beer was the biggest mistake they made, but they had to make it. I'm imagining there's this great battlefield, and we'll make a metaphor of it, with the woke people looking over a map, and it's the year is 2011, and they're like, okay, our first move is to send our troops into video games and video game journalism because older people won't see, and that means the commanders on the right will ignore it. It may bother young people, but if we can get a foothold there, we can then spread our troops around and gain control of movies and literature and TV shows. And then the lieutenant says, but sir, what about this area? And he points to beer. No, don't go near that one. We don't have near enough power in the culture war to strike at something as prominent as beer. And they thought now was that time. And maybe, I don't think so, but maybe they said, we have gained enough ground and enough institutions to where we can now muster an incursion on beer. And they're hoping that the right is weakened and demoralized to the point where their weird, insane cult garbage will actually successfully take over beer. I'm confident that they don't have the power to do so, especially if forces like ours tell people to resist to this degree.
Problem I'm having, you guys, and I'm severely black-pilled on voting. Maybe you can help me. That they're tallying votes on proprietary voting machines in private makes me feel so given up.
Right. I just don't want to deviate from the cultural stuff.
I know the cultural stuff is the victory. That is the win. But we're talking about, it's holistically like your metaphor about raising young conservative kids that then they will vote and fix the system. I don't feel that.
The voting, I didn't say yes. But what I'm saying is right now, our victory has to be cultural. The point is, have kids overwhelm the system to a degree where whatever you think, it doesn't matter. If we're looking at 4-1 in the votes, you win, hands down,
but if the
no matter
vote's
what they
done
do.
in secret, how it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. That's what Stalin said. It doesn't matter who votes. It matters
Joe
who counts
Biden
the
say
votes.
that too. I think my camera's not plugged in.
We better
Serge.
Plug it.
Yeah, I think it's about to die and you need to plug it in.
I'll take it.
Oh, I see the power. What were you going to say, Jesse?
Yeah.
Well,
it's a good thing I noticed that.
nice
It's about to cut out.
If I can
see
maybe ease your concerns, maybe not. Obviously, everyone knows there's a bunch of crap going on when it comes to voting, but that doesn't change your community. And unless you live in Philadelphia or New York or something like that, your community, those are the votes that matter. Who's on your school board? Who's your DA? Who's your sheriff? Who's on your city council? There's not some gigantic election cheating scheme in your community. Here, I live in Texas. May 6th, we have elections. Are Republicans going to actually show up and participate? Now, they're not sexy. It's not president. It's not Trump and DeSantis and the presidency. They're boring. Friggin' city council candidates and all that. We get outvoted in those. And it's not cheating. They show up 2, 3, 4-1 while we sit at home. Are we going to show up or not?
Okay, and they have an urban advantage. Because of population density, it's easier for them to expand their ground game and harder for people in rural areas.
Maybe that I've become overly obsessed with federal politics, and I've become demoralized.
All the right has, even if you consider yourself there, all the right has, because the right has this horrible savior complex because we're busy, we have jobs, families. They want one person to just win the presidency and fix it. Fix it, Trump. Just fix it, DeSantis. Neither one of those guys is going to be able to fix anything. It starts locally. It starts in your community. We start local, protect your community, fortify it, and then we expand it from there. Eventually, we get to Washington, D.C. Freedom's never going to come from Washington, D.C.
Well, let me ask you about that gathering you had where your neighbors came to you. Like, let's get specific on that. Like, so what happened? Did they show up and they were like, "Hey, Jesse, what's up with this beer thing?"
Well, we were. Who knows all the conversation that was going on? The beer thing this weekend. It was immediate, Tim. It was not. Well, something that came up after a while. Because everyone usually drives golf carts around the neighborhood or just walks to wherever we're going, seeing who's out and about, lawn chairs and stuff like that. Everyone, as they walked up, was talking about, it was the number one subject on everyone's mind. They were all talking about it. I'm getting rid of it. I'm done forever. Crap, I'm embarrassed. I didn't bring mine because I didn't want to get made fun of. I'm never buying it again.
That's it right there.
It was
I didn't want to get made fun of.
Oh, yeah.
That's the power of, see, this is what the left uses. They use shame. But if the dude bros are concerned about being made fun of, they're not going to do it. But that's why I was saying, like, you can simplify it for everybody and be like, don't worry, guys, beer's on me. And they go, yeah. And then you show up with a different brand.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys think that we need to unify against a common enemy? Do you think that we need that?
That's why I wrote the Anti-Communist Manifesto, which can be purchased at jessekellybook.com. No, listen, in all seriousness, that's why I talk about anti-communism so much. The right must unify. And we talk about libertarians and conservatives and nationalists and all these different parts of the right. And I'm not dismissing any of those parts and the different points any of them make. I have my own desires there. But what we're doing when we spend all this time, what should the end result be? Should tax rates be here or there? What we're actually doing is We're sitting inside the courtyard of a castle, and we're coming at each other about what color the drapes should be and how tall the buildings should be, while the enemy hordes are coming through the front gates to kill us all. We stop the left first, or all these arguments the right has about what it should or shouldn't be, they're all meaningless. None of it means anything at all. These people will steal, kill, and destroy everything. Once we stop them, then we can have that argument. And anti-communism is all that matters.
Here's the important thing I think needs to be said. These people have been engaged in this for a lot longer than you.
Oh yeah, pros.
You look at the analogy I was making about the battle map. You look at Gamergate. The institutional power was behind that, and we watched the subversion of our institutions. My favorite is the Free Press, an organization I've known for a long time, called for the banning of Alex Jones. So wait just a gosh darn minute. In 2011, they were like, the free press needs to stand and independent media is important. And then a few years later, they're like, Alex Jones is evil. It's like, aren't you guys the free press? Why are you advocating for the removal of a media outlet? Well, because it's fake news. I'm like, since when did you take the position on what is allowed to be news or not? But here's my point. The right is now actively and angrily pushing back in a way that's unprecedented. The way it's always been viewed before is that the left is pulling the entire country as hard as possible leftward, and the right was only resisting a little bit. Or a better way to explain it is the Republicans or Democrats driving the speed limit. Now, the chain snapped, the Democrats have driven off the edge, and Republicans are stopping and saying, no more, we're not moving. This is the point where we've actually seen active resistance to the woke takeover after a long period of time. That's why I'm optimistic on this. Because, I see the only way the left wins is if people on the right stop and say, you know what, I agree with the left, and then join them. Because what we're facing right now is their cities are crumbling, anarcho-tyranny doesn't work. What they're trying to do is destabilize police departments, destabilize cities in an effort to take things over. De Blasio said during lockdowns that something to the effect of buying up property as prices collapse and then converting it to public housing. But these policies only result in them losing influence and power because despite what they may hope with ESG and all that stuff, meritocracy still has a large grip. True capitalism still has a large grip. If you can't make money, you can't get power from it. They can try and manipulate using the Federal Reserve. They can try and give out loans and all that stuff, but they still need to be able to garner influence. And for the first time, probably in forever, the right stuck a stake in the ground and said, we're not moving. Now they're dealing with a collapse in their own influence and resistance at the same time. I look at it mathematically and say, if I were to step back from all of this and just go into a tower and watch, and I started doing the math to me looks like it will be a hard-fought battle, but the right will win, either through attrition or through perseverance. Something the left doesn't have.
What concerns me, we're in Austin right now. I went around for a walk earlier today, and I saw like some signs in yards like Beto O'Rourke, trans rights are human rights. And I'm like, you know what? When I was in LA, we would have parties where I'd go to a party. There'd be a trans guy or girl. There'd be someone that barely spoke English. There'd be a communist. There'd be a conservative Christian, and we'd all get along. And we would all talk politics, and we would all get along. But I go to this website. James Lindsay brought this up, beautifultrouble.org. It's a training website on how to do direct violent action creatively. And it's like a pop-up, get in trouble, it says. So like, how do you combat or resist active attempts to organize destruction?
Active attempts to organize destruction.
No, hold on, but sorry, this is my point.
You should pull this website.
They're destroying their own cities. Why am I going to cry about it?
Because they're my cities too.
Well, not any longer, dude. Get out.
Your cities too.
What's the website?
They're the economic heartland, beautifultrouble.org. And it
I don't
is
know
just
if we want to be promoting that.
You got to shine a light on this crap.
Well,
I mean, maybe it doesn't say anything violent on the website. It's real flowery, but
and keep in mind,
creative and energy injection in your direct action.
Keep in mind the real true heart of the problem is not necessarily the street animals. The street animals are always an issue, don't get me wrong, and they hurt people and whatnot. But the mob wasn't powerful back when they were powerful because they shot a bunch of people in the head. The mob was powerful back when they were powerful because they owned the positions of power. They own the judges, and they own the cops, and they own they own the government positions.
I disagree.
That's what gave. Well, it's true. That's what gave them their true power. That's why any organized crime in any area that really takes hold, the reason they can keep out other organized crime when you think they just go shoot him in, it's because he's just going to have like the cartels in Mexico. Half the times they use the cops to kill you. The cops will show up, arrest you, take you out, and shoot you in the face.
Yep.
The problem we have in America is they own the FBI, they own the DOJ, they own the CIA, they own the NSA, they from up on high, from the president on down. Oh wow, you're a pro-life guy reading Bible verses at an abortion clinic. Boom, abortion, felony. Try to put him away forever. You're some, I think it was a transsexual guy today attacked the Catholic Church. DOJ is recommending no charges. But we don't have the guys on top, and that's the issue.
And to a certain degree, I think it is. But confidence is the principal issue. And the reason why many judges won't uphold the law is because they fear Antifa. Now, you can say there's a component of this, and Antifa will get away with crimes. Therefore, Antifa is more confident in committing crimes and getting away with it. But it all, to me, looks like one big Mexican standoff. I see a bunch of people standing in a crowd who don't like wokeness, but will not be the person to say anything because they think everyone will then turn to them. The average person, in my opinion, let's look at that business in Portland, Coava, that shut down. I'm willing to bet that these people who worked at this cafe in downtown Portland would put flyers in the window saying Black Lives Matter, and, you know, in this house, we believe science is real, and go Biden 2020.
Science is real, feels me.
Even though they don't like the ideas, even though they despise the ideology, they would put those signs in their window out of fear that if they don't, Antifa will come and smash their windows. They have confidence that, and it doesn't mean a good thing, it means they truly believe that if they don't adhere, their business will be destroyed. But this is my point. Their business was already destroyed. Even their capitulation to the far left extremists and their feigning of support for them still resulted in the destruction of their business. That's why I'm like, look, confidence is everything. If at any point people no longer have confidence in law enforcement may as well not exist. You can see this in other countries. If you don't think a cop can do anything to you, you won't listen to that cop. In the United States, we do fear the police because we are confident if we break the law, we will get arrested and we will go to jail and the book will be thrown at us. Now we're starting to see in these big cities, that ain't true. So crime's running rampant and people are doing whatever they want, which is resulting in economic collapse. The seats of power may be beneficial, but only so far as human beings are actually working on a system that can maintain itself, right? Let's slow down. I'll back up. When we talk about third, fourth, and fifth generational warfare, the question is, if you could take over a country without firing a single bullet, would you do it? Right? If you wanted to take over a country and there was a means by which you could do it without firing a single bullet or engaging in any violent action, would you do it? Well, the answer is of course, because violence is expensive and resource heavy. If there was a cheaper and easier way to do anything, you'd do it. So that's why we see information warfare. These people need power. They want power. In order to have power, people have to do things that benefit them and empower them. So if they're a judge, if they're in charge of law enforcement in a city with no people, they have nothing. Those seats of power are completely meaningless if confidence in those cities is shattered. To simplify it even to a greater degree, if there are 100 people and one person becomes the chief of police, so long as those people keep working and paying taxes and they believe that chief of police has power, that chief of police can get those people to do whatever he wants. He can then implement changes. He can put up whatever flag he wants, and those people fear him. But if it comes to a point where no matter what happens, these people are failing and their businesses are destroyed, they're just going to say the system doesn't exist. And I'll give you another example of where I think this is going and why I think this. The founding fathers talked about the right of the presumption of innocence, rooted in the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. The idea that it is better that 10 guilty persons escape than one innocent person suffer is not just about protecting individuality. It was about protecting the system itself. If you have a society where everyone believes that no matter what they do, whether they're good or bad, they will be punished, well, then there's no incentive to be good at all. Look, I'm going to go work my job and be honest, but those guys are destroying everything, they're stealing everything, and they're not getting arrested. What's the point of being good? I might as well join them. But if the system says If you are a good person, we will do everything in our power to make sure the weight of government is never pressed against you. You will have the presumption of innocence. Then the pressure is created that says to a person, be the innocent one. Don't be the criminal, and the system will make sure you are safe. So now that they're creating cities and institutions that punish people no matter what they do, they're actually gutting and destroying their own structures, their own institutions, their own power base. And that's why I was saying, so long as these cities and places like Florida and Texas exist that are turning redder, or West Virginia, they can do whatever they want. They're knocking the legs out from their own structures, and we are building up ours stronger and better than ever. So I say, who cares? Let them do it.
I think that was San Francisco. I see the homeless. I keep hearing about how horrible it is, and like, part of me has this like malicious grin on the inside where I'm like, good, they deserved it. And then the other part of me is like,
they do.
Am I a horrible human for feeling that way?
No, they do.
What's wrong with me that I would enjoy that or find any glee?
You're supposed to. You're actually, let me explain. By you thinking that, what you just said right now, that makes you a bad person. You know why? Because these people voted for this stuff. And I have a smile on my face saying, I'm so happy for you that you got what you asked for. You should be very, very happy. That business in Portland that shut down, I'm happy for them. I'm not, far be it from me to go tell these people what they should vote for. This is what they wanted. They got it. And so I say, I hope you're happy with what you voted for. Congratulations.
The new mayor in Chicago, Brandon Johnson, they did a breakdown of the areas of Chicago who voted for Brandon Johnson. And Brandon Johnson, I mean, people thought Lori Lightfoot was bad. He's so much worse by orders of magnitude. Chicago will be Juarez within a year. It's going to. He's that bad.
Is it Juarez already?
Yeah, exactly.
Seriously.
It's not Chirac?
He's that bad. And they broke down the areas that chose Brandon Johnson. There was another guy much more moderate, a little tougher on crime, but they broke it down. And it was all the areas of Chicago that are already most ravaged by rapes and murders and violent crime every single day. Those people flocked to the polls and voted for Brandon Johnson. So the sympathy from this guy is gone. Just like Tim, I am excited for the people of Chicago. I feel like we are blessed to live in a country where we get the government we deserve. And they went out to the polls and they chose Brandon Johnson. And I'm very excited that they are going to experience living under Brandon Johnson. And you know why I'm excited about that? I'm excited about that because as a father of two sons, the truth is, the harsh truth of life is you really learn through pain. That's where you learn. I can tell you all day long, hey, don't touch the griddle. The griddle's hot. Stay away from the griddle. Don't touch the griddle. The griddle's hot. The truth is, just like the old saying goes, you gotta walk up to it as a kid and touch it, and then it's, oh my goodness, I'm never touching it again. But the people have not experienced enough pain for their stupidity yet, and the greatest thing you can do for a stupid person is allow that stupid person to suffer under their stupidity, because it's the only chance a stupid person can become smart.
Yeah, but I think I wouldn't take the approach you're taking in the outright gloating that you think they'll suffer.
Oh, they'll suffer.
Perhaps, but my attitude is, I'm so happy for you that your voting worked. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Oh, no. I'm gloating. I'm gloating because this is why I'm gloating. Because I'm tired of coddling voters on the left and the right. And I ride the right about this all the time. You heard me do it earlier when it comes to primaries. You whine about there's too much cheating, and there is cheating. I admit that. And there's too much and then you sit at home and don't show up for a primary vote. You don't show up for city council vote, and they vote for all of it. So stop. You owned it. You voted for it. And I feel the same way about the people on the left. You mentioned Portland, Chicago, San Francisco, wherever it is. Over and over. Well, I always vote Democrat. Yes, you've always been stupid. And now your stupidity is killing people. So clearly your stupidity is not hurt enough yet. At some point in time, I hope it will, so you'll wake up. Until that day, enjoy your hellhole.
But I don't even, here's my view, right? You go to someone in Chicago and you say what you just said, you've accomplished nothing. Like,
oh, I know. No, I know. They're going to have to experience pain. Nothing I say is going to matter. Pain is what they need.
But what will matter is, if you go to someone in Chicago and if someone, I've had people from Chicago come to me and talk to me about this stuff. And I simply say, like, I don't understand the problem. They'll be like, yeah, there was like a shooting that happened on my street. It was crazy. And I'll be like, okay, I'm sorry, I don't understand. They're like, well, it's just crazy. Crime's going nuts. And I'll be like, I'm confused. Are you unhappy about that? And they're like, yeah, it's horrible. And I was like, oh, well, because you voted for it. I thought that's what you wanted. And they'll go, I didn't want this. And I'll be like, you were arguing with me in November about how you did. I'm sorry. I just genuinely don't understand what you're trying to accomplish.
Oh, we're saying the same thing. I just get there more directly. I ask him, who'd you vote for? Hey, can you believe this guy just got shot here? Who'd you vote for last election? Oh, the Democrat. Congratulations, you voted for that.
But my point is, your approach comes to them as an enemy instead of the option. You see what I mean?
Yeah, but my approach, once you've done year after year, decade after decade after decade of the same behavior and same behavior and same behavior and same behavior, burning you, it's very clear that there's no approach. Look, the right has taken every approach. There's no approach that's going to convince you of anything else. You're going to have to experience pain. The approach, it doesn't matter how I tell my son a different way not to touch the griddle. I can yell, I can be nice, I can put a hand on his shoulder. He's going to have to touch the griddle and experience it.
There's a difference between someone understanding the consequences of elections and touching a hot stove.
No, there's not.
There absolutely is. Chicago's been under Democrat rule for 100 years.
Well, maybe Chicago was a bad example because that's true.
But this is all cities. The issue is, a politician steps up and says, I can tell you what the problem is. And they say, finally, someone different. But they don't understand that they're not going to solve that problem by voting for the same types of people. So they think they are not. Here, I'll put it this way. You've got a griddle, you got an electric stovetop and a gas stovetop. And they go, ooh, geez, that one's hot. I'll try this one. Oh, man, that one was hot too. Let me try that one. And every year, a different type of cooking device is placed before them that they don't understand.
Well, the upside is once you touch a hot, glowing red piece of iron, you know that all those other glowing red hot things, you don't touch those either. I've never touched lava, and I won't, because I did touch a stove one time when I was little.
But let's be honest. I don't think they're going to learn. I mean, I agree with you that pain and suffering are a great way to kind of teach yourself and to learn, but and sacrifice. But that's not what's happening here. And when I look at Chicago, when I look at New York City, I don't feel gleeful. I feel kind of sad because I see people stuck in this endless horrible loop and so much human suffering that they're bringing upon themselves. How do you solve that is a problem that I think is very difficult and I think more complex than just.
I don't celebrate the condition of America's cities. America's cities or any nation's cities, they're what goes on your billboard. I love New York City. It's one of my favorite places in the world. I love Chicago. I look at what's happened to America's cities and I lament it. But I've gotten to the point where, look, I can't help you. You very clearly won't help yourself. I can't help you. All I can do now is sit back and hope it gets painful enough that you will one day realize you're doing this to yourself. At some point in time, I can only drive the addict to rehab so many times, and then he's going to have to hit bottom. And that's the bottom line. I'm rooting for bottom. Hit bottom. Crash.
We're going to go to Super Chats, but I do want to add one last thing, and then maybe we'll elaborate on this in the members only show. But did you see when I overlaid the Chicago electoral map with racial demographics? They didn't vote for Brandon Johnson because they're far left. They voted for Brandon Johnson probably because of his race.
Okay, well, that's stupid too. Stop voting for people based on skin color.
The white people did it. The Latinos did it.
I know.
The black people did it.
The white liberal women did it. The black people did it. And the Latinos did it.
The white liberal women voted for the black candidate because white liberal women have an out-group preference. So you can actually look at the regions, the racial map in Chicago and see the different neighborhoods based on race. And you can see that in white neighborhoods, it was the white candidates and a little bit of Brandon Johnson, the far left candidate. But in the black neighborhoods, the top candidates were all black, even if they were some of the lower polling candidates for the rest of the city.
Well, I would change my voting behavior then.
So I predicted Brandon Johnson would win for one reason. White voters were mobilized to vote because of the high crime, but black voters still voted for Lori Lightfoot. She didn't win because white voters finally mobilized. But in the northern part of Chicago, where there's universities, these are younger people. They voted far left. They voted for Brandon Johnson. This resulted in a split vote, which led to a runoff between Vallis and Johnson. And so my prediction was, if every one of these areas votes based on race, combined with the far left voting for the out group and the far leftist, Johnson will win. And sure enough, that's what happened. But we're going to go to Super Chats. So if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, and become a member at timcast.com, because we're going to have that members-only show coming up for you at about 10 p.m. Eastern. But let's read your Super Chats for now. All right, let's see what we got here. All right. Matthew Reckamp says, I'd love it if you could shout out the response tweet I sent to Cornell W. Brooks, tweet of the little girl reciting her school's lockdown policy. Name one. I don't know. What's the response tweet I sent? I'm not sure I know the one. Let's read some more. It looks like we're having internet issues. Maybe, I don't know. Are we?
It's
Just
spotty.
stream-
It's been spotty for me. Just the Wi-Fi, the ones that we're on right now. It hasn't been the best.
But has the stream health looked good?
It's been fine for me.
All right. Well, it is what it is. All right. Let's read some more. Grinning Tiki says, shout out to a Drink with Crazy channel supporting Iron Age creators and winning culture conflict. Very cool. All right. Let's see what we got here. Tammy B. Best says, Tim, have you heard of the representation study which the YouTuber Leather Apron Club performed on your show? I'd be curious to hear your opinion on it. Nope. What is that? What is that referring to? Representation study? Don't know what you're talking about.
I used to have a band called the Leather Apron Club. That's
Leather
Ben
Aprons?
Franklin's. Yeah, in the Ben Franklin's Secret Society, their group, they would
Oh.
get together and they were all like Masons. They would wear leather aprons, so they called themselves the Leather Apron Club.
Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, Tim, my guy, I agree. Let the cities crumble, let their families fear rumble, let their souls stumble. They deserve the reaping of what they sow. They get no empathy from me. No longer are we humble.
Yeah, I don't want
Very
them
nice.
to suffer, but there's, like you said, Jesse, you can't feed an addict. You have to let them fall.
Actually, I think people should suffer, but to like a certain degree, right? I think.
Oh yeah, I don't want anyone to die. I don't want
No,
the
we're not-
cities, but they're gonna.
But hold on. I'm speaking philosophically.
Yeah.
The human experience involves joy, pain, sorrow, elation, etc. And so I think everyone should experience the gamut of human emotion. I think it would be rather sad, actually, to see a person who never experienced any kind of hardship. In fact, they'd create their own hardship. So, in terms of a practical context, I don't want people in cities to go through hardship because of their ignorance. But I do think, in a general philosophical sense, wanting someone to suffer is not necessarily the bad thing. I'm being a little bit pedantic.
I know
here.
what you mean. You want them to go through the motions of learning to suffer, to learn happiness, to learn
Right, yin yang.
strength.
You know, so it's not so much like ha 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 ha. This is what you get. I'm like, well, you know, like you're saying, like you'll touch the stove, it will hurt, and then one day you'll say, I shouldn't have done that, and maybe that's hopefully what we get out of it. You know, get the human experience. But my view is, you know, simply put, I don't care. I don't live in this place.
What
You know
is
what I mean?
this is a little, maybe you can answer this quickly. What are the characteristics of the people that are creating crime in the cities that people should watch out for when they're going to the polls?
Well, I don't know. I'm not in the cities. You know, here's the thing. Whatever you have, one of these people, well, it's what Tim just said. If you're going to have every white woman vote for the black candidate, if you're going to have every black person vote for the black candidate, then what are we talking about here? None of it matters. If we're going to vote based on skin color in cities, then they're done. That's all there is to it. If that, and you could say, well, history or tradition. Okay, well, whatever the reasons don't matter. If you're going to go vote for the black candidate every time, and they're going to dig up a black communist to run for office every time, you're going to get ruled by communists, and your city's going to be hell.
All right, let's read some more. Let's get another super chat here. Chrome Gear IRL says, it makes sense to me now why it was required for me to listen to NPR on my sociology class on my local community college back in 2003. Never really cared for that class. I'm just taking it for GE. 2A Willie says, I've been drinking Bud Light for many years. Also, I do drink it so I can drink a lot of it. Everyone here still agrees on many principles. I'm 2 cases deep on Lone Star since the ad aired. Don't alienate your viewers. But you just got to make sure, is Lone Star a Anheuser-Busch brand?
Yeah, I just learned Modelo is one too, which
Oh,
is a real
that's
letdown for
awesome.
me.
Shock Top,
I
too.
know. Yeah, Shock Top.
Yep. Goose Island. Yeah, Anheuser-Busch bought them. All right, let's see what we got here. We'll grab some more. Doug Rutledge says, fun fact, there's a completely separate Budweiser brand from the Czech Republic. It is made in a town that used to be called Budweiser. They often fight with American Budweiser over the brand name. Well, isn't that a shame? Now they're going to have to change their name because
that
they don't want to be
sucks.
associated with it, right? No, that's not us. That's not us. Ryan F. says, stock not even down 2% for the month. Smokescreen. The scandal just happened last week. Why would the point is their stock actually spiked over the past month. They were on a heater. You were buying that stock. You were celebrating. Then they went and pulled this move. And now you're probably going, why am I losing money? And here's the thing. People may see this and then be like, I better sell now. Because if this story's not going away after 2 weeks, you know, some people might think you're going to lose money, right? And that's what ends up happening in these panic stock cycles. When the stock starts selling off, people say, I better sell now before it's worthless. If I'm in at $100 on, if I buy a Bitcoin at 30 grand and the price is dropping, I better sell at 27 before it hits 1,000. And that causes it to drop further and further and further as people offload.
Look at the trend. What happened was on Monday, it dropped drastically at stock opening because people over the weekend were freaking out. And then there was a rebound where people were like, hey, the stock's down, buy as much as you can. And it jumped back up and then it just plummeted, dropped back down again.
And other brands are going up.
People bought back up, it dropped back down again. The trend is down on Anheuser stock right now.
Eric Miller says Nashville is the beer capital. If they just reject it, there would be a massive hit to Bud Light. Well, look at John Rich's Honky Tonk. He says we're not going to carry this stuff, He didn't. John Rich didn't come out like Kid Rock with the machine gun. John Rich came out and just said, hey, look, man, over the past week, we've not moved any of this product, and I got to consider if people aren't going to buy it, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
So his attitude is probably more like, hey, look, I get it. People are pissed about this. They're not buying it. We're going to end up with a lot of garbage on our hands. I'm going to buy it. It's really simple. I'll just buy a different beer. We'll sell that instead.
I should clarify, too, it's the trend of InBev that's down right now. Anheuser's just a company that InBev owns or that was merged
right. You need to look at Bud.
Yeah, they could dump that Anheuser-Busch brand name and just go try and mask what they're doing, but it's InBev that you want to watch out for.
James Garlick says you can take our NFL, you can take our children, but when you take our beer, that's when we get mad. Also, Timple, the reason you got hate for the Mario movie review is because you didn't understand the deep lore, and Nintendo fans are fierce lore nuts. What of the lore didn't I understand, though? I'm not sure I understand.
You said that Princess Peach was a badass, and that I was like, well, in Super Mario Brothers 2, she was. And you're like, yeah, but that was a dream. And I think that was a good argument. I didn't see the movie, but if they made Peach a badass, they made
she has her own. She has her own video game. There's a bunch of other issues.
Well, no spoilers, man. No spoilers. I haven't been to the new one yet.
Yeah, my bad. Also,
what are we doing?
It's not Princess Peach. It's Princess.
I'm not even listening. I'm not listening.
Else.
Princess Toadstool.
And then there's one
Toadstool.
scene where she specifically. No. I'm joking.
What? No, it was Peach.
Well, it used
He's
to be
called
Princess Toadstool. I don't know when
Right.
they changed it.
And they called Bowser King Koopa, but his name is Bowser. He's the king of the Koopas. So basically, this one's really confusing to me.
Oh, Princess of the Toadstools. I see.
We went and saw the Mario movie, and I wouldn't call it like the wokest movie I've ever seen. I would just call it like feminist cringe. You know what I mean?
Oh, don't tell me that.
But
Really?
I think that
Were you gonna go
reaction
see
is
it?
why
I was going to take the kids because I heard it didn't have any of that crap in
That's
it.
what
And
Crowder
this,
said.
And this is the craziest thing to me because Luke and I walked out of that movie and Luke started making fun of it because Princess Peach is invincible. Okay, let me just put it this way.
It's a girl boss movie.
If you want no
Oh,
spoilers,
gosh.
I respect that, Jesse. But if you want,
Yeah,
this
spoiler
is good.
I don't want spoilers. No.
If
No.
you take your kids to the Lions, then
okay.
bring
Don't
a sword.
take the kids.
This is-
All I need
just
to know
kidding.
is take the kids or not.
I got to give you spoilers to help you understand if that's the case.
All right, give them to me.
I'll keep it light. There are people who think wokeness includes movies where women are Mary Sues who are invincible and the men are bumbling idiots.
I do. I hate
Well,
those.
there's
They're
Mario.
those are my
Congratulations.
least favorite movies. Okay.
That's Mario. Okay. So simply put, Luigi is an ancillary character. Luigi is the damsel in distress. Princess Peach's storyline could have happened without Mario in it at all. So Mario's storyline is a one big accident, and Princess Peach's storyline is
Well, of
the
course.
hero of her kingdom fighting Bowser and saving the day.
Of course.
And in the end, I'll try to avoid being too spoilery. Let me just put it this way. If they replaced Mario with Jim Bob walking down the street, the story would have been exactly the same. Mario doesn't contribute in any way. It's very much like... we talked about this with, I think it's like Indiana Jones, like they say that in the first Indiana Jones, if he wasn't in the movie would have happened the exact same way. Because in the end, the Nazis open the Ark of the Covenant and die anyway. And there's things like that. But people, it's the weirdest thing. When the movie trailers first came out, a bunch of people said it was woke, girl boss, feminist cringe. And I was like, I don't care. And then I saw a bunch of conservatives saying it's not woke.
That's what I've seen. That's why I was going to see
And
it.
they're like, it made a whole bunch of money for rejecting wokeness. And then I was like, I'm just confused by that because when Ghostbusters 2016 came out, the big criticism was that all the women are Mary Sues. They're all really smart and capable and they developed this technology, and the men were all really stupid. And then when I went and saw Mario, I was like, oh yeah, it's like that. You know what I mean? Like Princess Peach is the one who trains Mario. Mario is incapable of doing anything.
No, I got it.
The
I've seen all this
backstory
stuff 1,000 times.
The
I got
backstory
it.
of Peach and Mario was never really in the
make
game.
him succeed. So when
So the drugs, basically.
oh, I guess.
It's a movie about drug use.
Movie about
Mushrooms.
Bud.
You would love it, Ian.
I do love it.
mushrooms.
They make you big
it's
and
weird.
strong.
But I'll tell you this, and I will say this unabashedly right now. I made a video about it. It's a half an hour long because I went and saw the movie. I believe that the rabid defense of the movie. So I got 70% thumbs up on the video I made, which is not normal for my videos. Normally it's like 98% thumbs up, 30% thumbs down. And I have conservatives arguing to me that it's not woke. And I said, okay, if the conservatives have moved the peg to the point where the traditional damsel in distress character is actually the kung fu heroine, who is the one who actually never gets hurt and already has the abilities, then the goalposts have shifted from 2013, where we would have called that feminist cringe. And that just means to me that the right is losing. So a lot of people say, look, Princess Peach can fight in Smash Brothers. Princess Peach is a playable character in Mario 2, which is an OG game from the 80s. Super Princess Peach, she has her own video game. She's a playable character who fights in Mario RPG and Paper Mario. I get all of that. I have absolutely no problem whatsoever with Princess Peach being a strong female character. The only thing I'm pointing out is Mario is a goofy sidekick.
He was always kind of a lumbering fool. That's the Mario. He's just like this dumb plumber from the Bronx that
I
falls
really
into
disagree.
a tube. And the thing that
you play Mario RPG. Play Mario RPG, and Mario is a legend. You walk around like, you're Mario? You're the greatest jumper in the world.
I'm thinking about the first game. Because he and Peach already have a backstory when the first game begins, but you don't know what it is. So maybe this movie is a prequel to the first Super Mario.
And not only that, but
Luigi
like
wasn't in
people
there.
are mad that I'm pretty sure Mario 2 was originally Doki Doki Island Panic.
That game was awesome.
Like I know a lot about Mario. I don't know. People think I don't. Maybe I'm not the world's expert on Mario or whatever. All I'm saying is Luke and I walked out of that movie without knowing anything about it, both being like, what was that?
The storyline sucked too. I didn't enjoy it.
So I have no problem with this. They didn't want a strong plot because Miyamoto said, we don't want to wade into this and piss people off. Keep it simple. There were a bunch of nostalgia references. I think the movie's primary audience was 35-year-old men who have kids and want to be nostalgic about Mario and these video games and the games they played. And they probably, don't really care about the feminist tropes or whatever. My point is simply that, like, people are saying it's a traditional hero's journey, Tim. And I'm like, I mean, kind of. But like, Luke Skywalker is kind of the dude who saves the day and is the chosen one. When I saw this movie, it was more like, I'm spoiler alerts. Just I'll say it again, just because I've been spoiling it. But like, when Mario accidentally finds himself in this place and Luigi accidentally finds himself in this place, there's already a war. It's already happening. Bowser's motivation has already been set. It's completely immaterial to anything having to do with Mario and Luigi. When Mario goes to Princess Peach, his presence there has no meaning whatsoever on the conflict that's already occurring in the Mario universe. When Bowser's fortress finally arrives to destroy the Mushroom Kingdom, Mario's not there, and Princess Peach is the one who confronts him. Princess Peach is the one who chooses to surrender to him, in which she gets captured, but it was all a ruse. She then, like, I don't want to spoil too
It
much.
was her master plan, and then
It was her master plan,
Look
and
at
then
little
I got
Mario.
it.
Look at how new you are.
She-
Like demeaning, making fun of him.
Yeah, the one thing I will say was anti-woke was when she said, look how small you are. Are you even human? And I was like, wow. That's pretty little person phobic. Anyway, I should read more super chats instead of complaining about Mario, to be honest.
Yeah, shout out my short kings.
All right, let's see what we got. David Toronto says, I run a business and AB products versus Miller was about 30 to 70% for Anheuser-Busch. This week, we ordered more Miller products. It's def real. And drinking is a habit. People will get used to their new beer.
Yeah. That you can do that quickly, too.
Yep. T-Rex Pet Shop says, we are in small town Idaho. They're promoting all ages drag here. We have to stand up to these people. We can't let them do this to our kids. Stop supporting woke pet stores. Give us your money instead. Hear, hear.
That's all I care about.
Yeah,
is the
so
kids, man.
where we're opening our new business, our new shop in West Virginia, they had an all ages drag show. And the first reaction I had was when looking at property, I said, I will not set up in a town that does this. Then I stopped and thought about it and said, actually, no, this is exactly where we need to set up. Because we're going to put Molon Labe in the window. We're going to put America First in the window. We're going to put West Virginia, Best Virginia in the window. And then we are going to create that cultural influence that will push onto the other businesses. And simply put, and realistically put, the power that we wield thanks to the members that we have and the wealth that we have will force a correction in this town.
Love it.
So when we are able to say we can sink $1 million into a project over 1 year in this town, that speaks to people. And when they say all that stuff does is like, it's a weird event, why do we care about that? Simply put, we have the means to expand this business, buy more properties, and have tremendous influence over this town in a positive way that is good for the people who live there and pushes back on the woke garbage. Thanks to all of you as members. That's the plan. And then ultimately our plan is to have 50 different coffee shops all over the country where people can hang out.
I like it.
Yeah, one day. Imagine you walked into, you saw a coffee shop. You look on your phone, you type coffee. Cast Brew Coffee pops up and you're like, it's coffee, it's fine. You walk in and what do you see? TVs on the walls, Steven Crowder playing. And then you're like, I don't know, whatever. And you go buy a coffee. And then you sit down and you're drinking your coffee. And then the next video that plays is Viva Fry, Robert Barnes, Timcast, or Jesse Kelly. The idea is regular people will come to buy coffee, but we will just make sure we are exerting our cultural influence in these spaces.
I like it.
All right, let's grab a couple more super chats. Barrow Wolf says, look up Procter & Gamble stock over the last year. What, is it bad?
I will look that up.
I'm assuming most of it bad. Justin and Peace says, did Steven Crowder win versus the Daily Wire by just making Mug Club his own? And what's your opinion on Brian Callen and Nick DiPaolo being brought in to add more content?
Steven Crowder definitely won. He's crushing it right now.
Well, I don't know if they won. I mean, they're both doing very well.
Yeah, they both won.
And
that was a wonderful publicity stunt.
But I think my personal opinion is everyone would be better off running their own brand, running their own website. And that's what the goal of, the open
Inverted
source
Technology. Yeah, I was just thinking about
the
that
open
today.
source project,
That's the company that I have is called Inverted Technology.
The idea was to create
an
an open source package that anyone could install on a website and have their own subscription service. It's kind of a bummer to me that everyone still just decides to work for someone else. But I get it. Not everybody has the wherewithal to run a company. It's certainly not easy.
Yeah.
Very difficult.
People should be able to run their own business that's employee one, you. I think that
That's how you
makes
do
a lot
it.
of sense.
That's how I've been doing it for forever.
And then you can work your business with his business and two businesses come together rather than an employee and an
And we're
employer.
unofficially like working together. And that's what we're doing here
contractually,
with We Are Change and Timcast. Without even a contract. We don't need a contract.
And you
We're
can
just
cryptographically split income. And
we're
things
just
like
bros.
that. Just homies doing homie things.
All right, let's grab some more super chats. Grumpy Bomber says, what would you think about this beer issue being similar to Napoleon going too far? And this would be the long turning point that ends this insanity. I'm saying, at the very least, I hope so. Yeah, Napoleon said, let's go into Russia in winter. Yeah, well, that don't work.
Hitler did that too.
That's right. They don't learn. And I think maybe, that's what I was saying, like, the woke people said, we've garnered enough cultural influence to try and take beer. And they were wrong. I hope. So we got to sustain this one. All right. Tim Harden says, howdy, fellow Tim. I run a nonprofit in Texas that scores state lawmakers on fiscal issues. Everyone in the org is a big fan. We will be there Friday. Ron Paul last night was epic. Keep it up. Check us out. Texans for fiscal responsibility. Very cool. Very cool. Very excited for Friday.
I looked at Procter & Gamble's stock. It's just down and then up. There was nothing like notable about it. It just, I'm not sure why that was brought up. Let's
see. Paracelsus says, in Star Trek, there was the eugenics wars of the 21st century. We are fighting eugenics wars now. Yeah, I think
us versus plastic.
People pointed that out, based on the Star Trek shows, the new ones where they talk about this stuff too.
Yeah, I don't watch those nerd shows, but you're dead on. There's a deep depopulation agenda happening right now. That's right in your face.
Diane Reynolds says, Tim, every time we watch your daily video, Bud Light is the ad we need to skip through. Also, wow. Ian needs to watch Peter Zeihan to learn about China.
I love that guy. And yeah, this is my concern about talking about Bud Light is, are we being manipulated by the algorithm to promote Bud Light and make them money in the long run? I think, Tim, your argument about because not all press is good press. So boycotts are definitely a form of negative press that can hinder a company.
All right, let's see. Grayson says the creator of Mario literally said that he is meant to be an average guy. And that's fine, and I can respect that, but when I play Mario RPG, one of the greatest Mario games of all time, he's actually talked about as the greatest jumper of all time. Legendary, so strong. And when you play Mario 64 without any power-ups, Mario only uses special hats to fly and turn to metal, he can punch. In Mario 64, he runs, jumps, punches, kicks, and butt stomps.
And he's a kitty.
But
Cute little kitty.
I'm fine with that. Tanuki suit, the raccoon leaf. These things have always been a part of Mario.
He never fired the fire shots, though.
Mario never got firepower.
And he's a failing loser.
Spoilers, man.
Sorry,
I'm ignoring you guys. I'm ignoring you guys.
I wouldn't.
But he's a loser in Brooklyn with a failing business.
Oh, Brooklyn. I thought it was Bronx. He's Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Brooklyn. Yeah, I didn't hate the movie. I thought it was passable. It wasn't the greatest movie. It was fun nostalgia. I thought it was really cool when when Donkey Kong and all that stuff. I don't want to give away spoilers. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I'm just saying, like, why are people acting like it's not woke? Like there's feminist cringe in it. People get really mad about that. All right, let's see. What do we got? Joshua Mosk says, I do agree with your theory that if we had 20 years and conservatives had a lot of children, thanks for change. But if you look at our world and compare it to the Bible, we are heading to the end of days. We don't have 20 years.
No, it's the end of the story of the Bible, not the end of days. It's the apocalypse, which is the great unveiling. And that's what's happening is the data is being revealed. Our personalities and our desires are being revealed on a global scale. And there's the communist thing. There's all these different,
What is this?
Not the end.
A-Trip says puts are up 100%. Is that true? On Bud? Can we check that? That'd be interesting. All right, everybody, if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and become a member over at timcast.com by heading to timcast.com and clicking Join Us. And then you can join the VIP chat and check out the members-only uncensored show that will be live in about 10 minutes. So do that. Subscribe to this channel. Share the show with your friends. You can follow us on Instagram at Timcast IRL. You can follow me personally everywhere at Timcast. Jesse, do you want to shout anything out?
No, Jesse Kelly show on every single weeknight, 6 to 9 Eastern, Monday through Friday. They podcast it after this show because I know you're all going to be watching Timcast anyway. So just go download it when you're done. I do have an anti-communist manifesto book coming out. You can pre-order it at jessekellybook.com. Other than that, go fight for your country. Take it back.
Jesse, thank you so much for coming on. That was great. Really appreciate
you,
it.
brother.
My website is lukeunfiltered.com, 3:30 p.m. tomorrow, Austin, real in life meetup. I'm going to be giving out pickles. There's going to be surprise guests. I'm going to be putting the address 6 hours before the meetup on lukeunfiltered.com. One of many perks available, lukeunfiltered.com. See you there tomorrow.
Jesse Kelly DC on Twitter. Always a pleasure, my man.
Jesse Kelly DC on Twitter. Appreciate you, Ian.
I just had a thought. Maybe the reason the Bible story is coming to a close in these days, this is the apocalypse in the end of the Bible story, is because another story is about to begin. So it'll probably look back and see us as part of that story. You're included. Bye.
I'll take it.
All right, everybody.
Oh, wait. Serge Duprea has been killing it over here.
Yeah, I'm here. What's up, guys? How are y'all? AskSerge.com if you want to follow me on Twitter.
Right on, everybody. We will see you all over at timcast.com in about 10 minutes. Thanks for hanging out.